Pay the price.
And he may pay the price. There is just so much stuff going on. Ukraine's President Zelensky hits the panic button. The desperate NATO-backed dictator has now publicly turned on his Western paymasters and confessed that 58% of the $200 billion of U.S. funds never came into Ukraine as Doge their investigation uncovers massive theft and money laundering. Zelensky outed Congress Sunday.
Більше 75. Тобто 100 мільярдів з цих 177 або 200, говорять навіть деякі люди, ми ніколи не отримували. І це важливо.
Yes, I agree. Authorities searching for clues after a medical transport jet crashed into northeast Philadelphia, killing 7 people. 6 people on board were killed, while another was on the ground, also died. Who was on the ground also died. The jet went down on Friday. They have found the black box. Denver police.
Dude, on that note, real quick.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of that video. I think you probably saw the impact crater where,
yes.
I mean, it looks like a missile.
It does.
Hit the
Absolutely.
ground. And my father's a pilot, jet certified, all that stuff. So all this, I always have conversations with him about this. He goes, look, if it was a stall due to ice, you would probably see it kind of spin down.
Yes.
He has never seen anything hit that hard.
Is that right?
That fast, ever. Wow. I mean, that thing was coming straight down.
I saw the light, wild. But I haven't seen. Could you tell if it was spinning at all?
He said he couldn't. I mean, that thing just torpedoed. I mean, right like a missile.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if you're witnessing that? You have no idea if it's a plane. You have no idea what it is. Plus, all the drones in that area. I mean, what is going through your mind at that point?
So we've seen at least a passenger jet ice up and then crash, and it was in Washington D.C. What, in the 80s or 90s when it landed on the 14th Street Bridge, and it just kind of fell, like just kind of flat, right? That's not what that plane looked like in Philadelphia.
That's right.
That thing.
Oh, wow. I mean, that was horrific, man.
And to be that little medical person, the little girl on that plane, and the mother and everybody, jeez, terrible.
No, it's just in 2 days we saw just horrific. What we think are accidents. Who knows what happened? I mean, it's just horrible. Denver police investigating a crash involving one of its officers. The 2-vehicle crash happened early Sunday morning near the intersection of South Federal and West Ohio. 1 person injured and taken to the hospital. A portion of Larimer Street that's been closed to vehicle traffic since 2020 is reopening. The Rhino Business Improvement District says the temporary closure of the 2900 block of Larimer came to an end on Sunday. The street was closed nearly 5 years ago to encourage pedestrian-friendly outdoor spaces and help support local businesses. The business district decided not to pursue a city permit to keep the block closed to traffic. This weekend, the Department of Defense and the Department of Transportation announced officials won't commemorate Cultural Awareness Months going forward. The move will end recognition of things like Black History Month, Women's History Month, or Pride Month among federal offices. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet with President Trump this week. He's expected to travel to the White House on Tuesday, where he'll be the first foreign leader to meet with Trump in his second term. Panama's president says his country will end a key deal with China after a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. President Raul Molino said Sunday that his country won't cede control of the Panama Canal to the won't cede control of the Panama Canal to the U.S., something DJT has talked about fairly frequently. He wants to work more closely with, hoping he wants to work more closely with America. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. The Mavs, Luka Doncic to the Lakers for Anthony Davis over the weekend. I'm sure that was orchestrated by the NBA. Pelicans at the Nuggets tonight at 7. Avs over the Flyers on Sunday. 42 in Centennial, 39 in Boulder, 44 in Denver. TGIF already came and went, and we are now on Monday morning. Hello, Monday. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Very mild Pacific air will dominate here along the Front Range pretty much all week, although temperatures will be up one day, down the next. Overall, they're going to be very, very mild for February as Arctic air will be locked up in the meantime to our north through Friday, but it will be trending colder by the weekend. 65 to 70 today, 50s to near 60 tomorrow, low to mid-60s Wednesday, cooling to the 50s Thursday, nights 20s and 30s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center. Very mild.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. In a second, I want to get to the new Democratic chairs of the Democrat Party. So much fun.
Weird.
All right. Do you know a high school student who has a passion for engaging in cultural and political issues? The knowledge and skills needed to impact the world through civic engagement is an ever-increasing need in today's society. Colorado Christian University is at the forefront of meeting this crucial need, equipping the next generation of competent, convictional Christian leadership in American politics. CCU's degree program in politics with an emphasis in public policy prepares students for the complex challenges of modern politics from an unapologetically Christian and foundationally conservative worldview. In this distinct program, students learn how to impact public policy and advance Christian conservative ideas. Colorado Christian University also houses the Centennial Institute, a think tank committed to mobilizing ideas on faith, family, and freedom to strengthen America's future. CCU's mission to produce graduates who impact the world with grace and truth applies in no greater measure than to our politics and public policy program. Apply today at ccu.edu/apply. That's ccu.edu/apply. All right. Newly elected leadership of the Democrat Party was made over the weekend. And a party deeply committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, that combats systemic oppression, that cares deeply about, quote, authentic representation and intersectionality, made the leader of the Democrat Party straight white guy married with 2 kids.
Yeah, well,
it almost sounds like merit.
Yeah, but don't tell Trump's cabinet that. Don't do that. That'd be awkward. Don't point that out. I shouldn't do that one. That's not good.
So new chairman of the Democrat National Party, Ken Martin. He comes from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And as a vice chair, in an effort to outreach to middle America and hopes to win future elections, David Hogg, the anti-gun guy who says you have no right to a gun.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. That's going to be a change, and I don't think it's as negative as you believe it is.
Yeah. Oh, I think this is going to be interesting. I think that not only the Democrats showcase that they don't really care about DEI and quote authentic representation, they are putting lefty loonies into leadership of the Democrat Party that aren't going to appeal well to moderates. But would love to hear from you. Is this a tact towards the extreme, towards the middle? This is going to make a difference at all in future elections. Who runs these parties? Could you even tell me who ran the Republican Party outside of Lara Trump recently? Probably not, but we'll see. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Let's go to Mike Greeley. Good morning, Mike. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning, gentlemen. You are my heroes in the morning. I commute about 35, 45 minutes every morning.
Oh, thank you.
And love listening to your show. You both have some fantastic point of views. But what's your take on Jason Crow and not liking the idea that we're keeping all these, criminals and detainees at the Space Force?
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was
So
weird.
what Mike's referring to is that Jason Crow has held a series of emergency meetings with immigration advocates in order to protect the rights of illegal immigrants and the deportation that's taking place. And I just pointed out that in all of his eagerness to meet with people, dude never met with anyone at the apartment complexes that were overrun by Venezuelan gangs.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the thing for
Good
me
point.
is this seems to be performative, that he's mad about something that doesn't necessarily matter. If we're going to be concerned about the immigrants being housed on one of the military bases, we should look at security. If these immigrants are a risk, should we be taking them into an area of the country that is highly secure? And again, depends on where and how they're housing them. But it seems logical that if they have extra space and the military, when Jeff and I were talking about, should be involved in the planning, should be involved in the housing, should be involved in the transportation of Donald Trump's deportation process. So this seems reasonable, again, as long as they're taking the adequate measures. You know, they're not parking them right next to all the satellite information or something like that, which I assume they're not going to. So again, I'm making a lot of assumptions on this, that Crow's doing this for performative politics. It really doesn't matter to him because he would have the same moan, he would have the same gritch if they were just building a facility out next to Buckley, or we were taking some empty land that was out near like Dick's Sporting Goods Park, lots of empty land out there, and we were just building a facility. He still would moan and complain. He's less concerned about the location. He's more concerned about the social media. And
Yes.
yeah, that's the problem.
And
I get no respect for it.
cocktail circuit.
Yeah, I get no respect because he only shows up at times in which he can talk about language and are people being upset. He's not showing up at times in which people are actually being hurt. So yeah, for me, and I'm in his district too. That's a pain point for me. I'm in his stinking district. I know, man. I feel it sucks.
Yeah.
So
And we sit here every day reminded we could have John Fabricatori.
yeah, we could have. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Good point. Gentlemen, I appreciate your input and love listening to your show.
Hey, thanks,
Hey,
Mike. Enjoy the
Mike,
drive,
you
man.
are awesome.
Appreciate you.
What a
Have a
way
good
to
Monday.
start off the Monday.
That's nice.
Dude,
Wow.
Mike
Mike rocks.
dropping some compliment
And I love the
bombs.
fact
I love it.
that he's rolling half hour, 45 minutes for the gig. That's commitment. That's, you know,
Right there.
I hate
True
that. I hate that
American
kind
hero.
of, I hate that kind of travel in that traffic. Mike's got my respect. That's a rough one. And he's getting out early. I'm sure because he's trying to avoid the traffic. He does what we all do. So nice job, Mike. It's good to hear from you, man.
Thanks for heading to work and make this country great. All right, we'll continue. We got Rory O'Neill coming up on Trump's tariffs. What could be costing more? We're going to learn more from him in a second. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. All right. President Trump on Saturday following through with his threat to impose stiff tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. And it begins tonight at midnight. It begins Tuesday. So to give us some insight on what may cost more, Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent, joins us. Good morning, Rory.
Yeah, good morning. Well, it might cost more at midnight. I don't know. Maybe some other deal is brokered in these final hours, but President Trump is promising 25% tariffs on products that are imported from Mexico and Canada. With a carve-out, it'll be 10% for energy products that are imported from Canada and 10% tariffs on China as well.
And it sounds like the other countries aren't going to back down, even stepping up some of their tariffs too. What are you seeing on that side?
Right. So in exchange, Canada has already said, well, you're going to slap us with 25% tariffs. We're going to do the same on products that we import. You know, President Trump has given a bunch of reasons as to why he wants these tariffs. He says that he wants Mexico and Canada to do more to stop migrants from entering the U.S., to stop the flow of fentanyl. But more recently, he talks more about how there's a trade imbalance. He talked last night about the U.S. is giving Canada $200 billion a year as a subsidy. Well, it's really just a trade deficit, meaning we buy $200 billion more stuff from Canada than they buy from us. But look, the Canadian population is a lot smaller than the U.S. You'd expect them to be buying less.
Talking to Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent. So in light of these trade tariffs coming in, should people run out today and make as many purchases as they can?
Well, it wouldn't be the worst idea, especially when it comes to, say, electronics or something, because if you're maybe in the market for a pricey new car, the president has said he wants to slap tariffs on the EU as well. So look out, Mercedes, BMW, you could be next on the list, or in your case, Volkswagen.
Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent. Thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show this morning.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
So, all right, Bill, here we go. Tariff time. I actually think the New York Times got this one right.
In what way?
So here's how they covered it over the weekend. Soft power is out, hard power is in. Since returning to the White House, President Trump has demonstrated that he prefers to bludgeon, not bargain, his way to foreign policy goals with counterparts from Asia, the Middle East, and North and South America. Mr. Trump has shown a willingness to use American power in a way that most of his modern predecessors have not. His favorite blunt instrument is not military force, but economic coercion, like the tariffs he ordered on Saturday on goods from Canada, Mexico, and China. The tariffs set to take effect Tuesday amount to a declaration of economic war against America's three largest trading partners, which have threatened to retaliate in a tit-for-tat that could escalate beyond any such conflict in generations. Mr. Trump's decision to follow through on his tariff threat raises the stakes in his hard-edged America First approach to the rest of the world with potentially profound consequences. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, what about the Wall Street Journal? And this is being the dumbest trade war we've ever launched.
And they were going back and forth, by the way. Trump responding over the weekend.
Yeah, but it's a dumb trade war. The other part I want to point out, universally in this coverage, who pays the tariffs? What are the stories saying? The prices were going to go up for consumers, right? Huh. That's weird. Almost like I'd been saying that for months. Almost like that is exactly what I was saying for months, that this is a tax on consumers. And everybody went out there and voted for Trump to lower the prices. And his first major economic action raises them. Congratulations. Good job. Golf clap. Nice job. You did it. You did it. Yeah. You didn't get what you want. You didn't listen. You didn't understand the economic principles. He said what he was going to do. And I sat here telling you it was going to raise prices. Yep, sure enough. In fact, Fox News this weekend had a scroll. They didn't bother to read it. They had a scroll of the prices that American consumers should expect to go up. Remember, we were all screaming and yelling, Biden inflation. Oh, my God, I'm paying so much for eggs. Oh, my God, my grocery prices. And now Fox News says, buckle up, biscuit. You are going to pay more for crude oil, beer, alcohol, lumber, steel, shoes, avocados, maple syrup, ground beef, cherry tomatoes, sugar, bananas, nuts, cooking oil, squash, cucumbers, strawberries, pineapple, Tonka trucks, other toys, and then autos manufactured by BMW, Audi, and Nissan, Mazda, and Ford. Golf clap. You did it. You ignored what the economic principles and theories were. You thought you knew better. You got it. Congratulations. You're going to pay more. You voted for Trump because you wanted to pay less. And the end result is, so far, you're paying more. Congratulations.
So I asked people on X about this a few weeks ago, even a few months ago, if they would be willing to pay more if it meant that America was producing its products here. And overwhelmingly, on my X poll, people said yes. So I'm not so sure that they are caught off guard by this. I think they anticipated this.
Where are we making the pineapples?
They see that it comes through as part of the effort to bring manufacturing back to America.
We can't manufacture pineapples here. We don't have the climate. Can't do some of those things. Avocados don't have the climate, really. So you can't bring the manufacturing back. Coffee, can't do that either.
Yeah. So, but what on some of the other stuff?
That's weird.
That Trump talks about, particularly steel.
Yeah. So that means you can pay more for it, right? That's not lowering the prices, because if it's manufactured here in the U.S., the reason it's manufactured elsewhere is because it's cheaper. That's how the free trade works, is that companies that produce it less expensively do, and then they import it here, and it helps both countries because we get cheaper goods and they get the economic benefit. That's how the free trade works. So again, the solution that I was outlining is exactly correct. Donald Trump, okay, fine. You want to bring all the manufacturing back? That's fine. Go right ahead. But we're going to be paying more. Again, not getting us to the goal of lower prices. And that was the top two gritches against Biden. High prices, immigration. Huh. So, and now we're going the other direction.
I see it differently. The critique against Joe Biden, particularly as it relates to high prices, was inflationary policies that led to those high prices. So all the government spending, those types of things. I think the American people are making a distinction and are willing to pay more if it means that the manufacturing is going to come back to America.
Explain to me how tariffs aren't inflationary.
In the sense of...
No, they are. Inflationary are policies that raise prices. That's what you're talking about, the inflationary policies of Biden.
I don't think that's the definition of inflationary.
No, but
it's the weakening of the dollar.
No, you
you
talked about the policies of Biden that caused inflation, which was raising prices. Yeah, inflationary prices. Tariffs aren't inflationary.
I don't see tariffs as inflationary in the same way.
Why not?
Because how does it cheapen the dollar?
No.
Because that's the definition of inflationary.
Yeah, but also the definition of inflation is rising prices. When prices are rising, yes, yeah,
no,
yes.
I disagree.
Why? Okay.
Because
fine, we'll go look at the definitions. Fine, if we're going to play this game.
Because a price doesn't go up, just because a price that goes up does not mean that it is inflationary. I think inflationary has to do with the weakening of the dollar, so that the dollar, you have to have more in order to get the same amount, and that doesn't seem to be the same definition. I could be wrong. I'm not an economist. But you're welcome. But the other thing I want to talk about too is
definition of inflation is the rise and increase in prices over a given period of time. Part of that can be the weakening of the dollar, but the other part is the rising of the prices. The inflationary policy directly is the tariffs. All I'm saying is you pointed a minute ago, you pointed a finger at Biden's inflationary policies.
Right.
A tariff is also an inflationary policy by definition. It is. In economics, tariffs are an inflationary policy. If you are upset at Biden's inflationary policies, this is an inflationary policy. You have to be mad about it as well, or you're just going to play politics with it and say, I'm just mad at the Democrat inflationary policies, but the Republican inflationary policies I'm okay with. They're both inflationary policies at their core. They are.
Yeah, to me, I think there's a distinction there. But the other thing that Trump is bringing up in his efforts on these tariffs is looking at the costs of both Canada and Mexico. And this is the real rationale from his perspective on tariffs with these two countries, is that they're not doing enough to address human trafficking, and in particular with Mexico and in part with Canada, but with Mexico, the fentanyl, the cartel activities, essentially saying that Mexico has allowed these to take place. They're harming our country. That's adding cost to our community, and Mexico needs to step up and deal with it. And Donald Trump is willing to use tariffs to deal. All right, we're going to traffic. Okay. Oh, we're having fun computer issues. We'll continue with these.
We're going to stay here. Yeah. No, it's. You want to go to break or what do you want to do?
Yeah, sure. We can go to break.
Oh, okay. We're going to break. Okay.
All right.
Okay, let me fire that then again. Okay, we'll go to break then. Okay, here we go.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. I knew this was going to be a spicy one today because we've got into it in the past. Inflation, tariffs. Is Donald Trump going to drive up prices on everybody? Is he bringing manufacturing back to America? Where do you fall along this line? Bill, going back to the definition of inflation, yeah, it's a general increase in prices, but it's also the fall in the purchasing value of money.
Yeah.
So it's the weakening of the dollar.
No, but that's the fall of the value is the increased price. Your dollar is worth less when Donald Trump makes your maple syrup cost more. That's inflationary. Your dollar now buys less. That is a weakening of the dollar.
I totally disagree.
No,
it's the pumping of money into our economy. In fact, I'm looking at MIT right now.
Hang on.
And what causes inflation? Federal spending is the number one thing that causes inflation.
And you stopped there on the list, right? You didn't go any further.
I said it was number one.
No, but you didn't go any further, right?
Okay. Inflation expectations, number 2. Interest rates, number 3. Producer prices, number 4.
Ah, there we go. Thank you.
Number 4.
Ding, ding, ding.
Number 4.
Yes.
I've never said that that price going up or not may not affect it, but the number one thing is federal spending.
But no, stop here. We are not discussing federal spending at this point. We are discussing the fact that Donald Trump's policies are going to raise the price of consumer goods. On that list, it says, oh my God, the machine's taking over.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We'll continue.
You're just
random interruptions of the debate, Billy and I are
that
having.
was fun.
Maybe the computers had enough.
Yeah, maybe.
I've had enough of you guys.
Yeah,
Here's
maybe.
a commercial.
But yeah, it's enough. You guys are fighting again.
Let's go to
Commercial break.
Tony Littleton. Good morning, Tony,
Yeah,
on the
help us out
Jeff
here,
and Bill
Tony.
Show.
Hey, good morning, guys. So I think this is a bigger deal than you're probably making it out to be. So far, the Chamber of Commerce has come out and said he has to reverse these immediately. The Fed has come out and taken off. They plan to have 4 quarter-point cuts in the next year, and they have taken that off the table under the expectation that we are going to experience inflation and a slowdown in the economy. They've now projected that our economy will probably fall by 1 percentage point, so from 2.8 to 1.8, if these continue. I think it's important that facts are on. You have to deal with the facts, the real facts, in this case, and that starts with oil, and that's going to be the big issue. We are currently producing more oil and gas than any nation on earth ever in history. Nobody's ever produced more than we do, but yet we export oil and we import oil. And the reason we do that is because what we produce, we can't refine. And what we import is what we can refine. And we get 60% of that from Canada.
So why can't we refine it here?
It's different kinds of oil. It's different kinds of oil. We need new refining plants, and we don't have those plants. So that's why we export oil, and then we bring in, and Canada is a huge supplier of this oil that we need so desperately.
Yeah,
there's
different grades of oil, and it takes different processes to basically refine different ones.
Can we build those?
We are set up to process. We are set up to process the Canadian oil. We are not set up to process our crude oil. We ship that out and make the money off of it. Yes, we could build refineries here and process it here. Doesn't mean it's going to be less expensive. And also, what it's not going to do is lower gas prices anytime in the near future, because those refineries would have to be built. So it's not something that's going to happen immediately.
Only put 10% tariff on that, because he knew that a 25% tariff probably would have resulted in about a 70, 80 cent per gallon price increase, which is not just for the consumer, it's for all those trucks moving all those groceries all over the country, and thus we would start experiencing inflation in the supermarkets. Now, Canada, Trudeau, he's making Trudeau a hero again. Trudeau has come out and basically said, I'm hitting you right now with $150 billion in tariffs. In 21 days, we're going to add another layer on that. And I think the reason he's put that 21 days in there is he probably agrees with me on this. Trump doesn't expect this to last that long. I would not be surprised if Trump declares victory in 5 days and he cancels these tariffs, and
and what does Trump get out of it?
Says he won. Well, keep in mind, there's 2 things he keeps saying, and you guys just said it a moment ago. There's 2 complaints that he has about Canada. 1, you're letting in too many immigrants, and you're letting in too much fentanyl. Well, our statistics, our government says they let in less than 1% of the immigrants and the fentanyl problem that we have, less than 1. So that's not it. The second point is the trade surplus. We are upside down versus Canada. If you take out the oil that we need, if you take that out, then we actually run a surplus against Canada. And heaven forbid China comes in and solves that problem and tells Canada, we will buy every barrel you produce for the next 6 months, every single barrel. Then we can count on a $1.50 per gallon increase on gas. We cannot afford for Canada to cut their oil shipments to us without paying a huge price. And then remember also, they have another card to play, and that is they supply electricity from Quebec to the northeastern states, electricity, not gas, electricity produced in Canada, used by our households. In the Midwest,
Tony,
they do the same thing. They provide utilities.
You provide this big list of all the things that we're dependent on Canada for. Is that good?
Well, more important than that.
Yes, it is.
Canada knows they're going to answer the question. Canada
yes.
said straight up they're going to go into a recession. And so is Mexico. Both those countries are going to go into a recession. And right now, most of the G20 is just on a razor's edge. Low growth, inflation that's uncomfortable. everybody except us. And now we are purposefully driving two of our allies into recession.
And
which
it seems,
they buy less
Tony,
from
it
us.
seems like it's something that's pretty easy to solve. Get serious about the border and get serious about fentanyl and the human trafficking that's there.
You just
and
heard
Donald Trump
Canada
will walk
has
away
nothing
from
to
it.
do with that.
Tony, I don't think they have nothing to do with
Well,
it. Tony,
less than 1%.
I appreciate the call. We've got to get to You Choose the News. Now time for a little moment of levity on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, it is that morning where we take our jobs in our own little hands because nobody in charge has any idea. We play America's fake radio news game show here. You choose the news. Yes, I've scoured the interwebs for moments this morning to find really dumb stories about us humans and give them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show. Alrighty. Gentlemen, Blake Olson in the newsroom that is joining us and Jeff Hunt in the studio. Here are headlines, sirs. Headline number 1, not like the Matrix. Headline number 2, secret filling. Headline number 3, can't keep a secret. And headline number 4, jumping into action. Your choice, Mr. Hunt.
Secret filling, please.
Secret filling. Here we're going to China. A Chinese man who planned to propose marriage to his girlfriend hid a gold ring inside the cake that he had prepared for her. She got a hold of the cake a little bit too early and went nom nom nom, actually biting into the ring. She actually ended up snapping it in half. He didn't know that she was going to attack the cake before he planned on the surprise. And so, yeah, she was just eating it and said, oh, God. And she bit into something and then spat it out. And it was the gold ring that was broken into 2 pieces. So
she
now,
broke the ring, not her tooth?
Yeah, nope, the ring. Again, I'm not saying that he may not have been, or he might have gone bargain shopping for the ring. I'm just saying. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. And again, so yeah. So,
I'm always
no judgment.
Intrigued by the guys that are like, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's put the ring in food.
The food's
like,
weird.
Really?
Yeah. Because then it's messy. How do you put it on the hand?
Right. And they've got to clean it off and all that stuff.
I hid the food. I hid the ring in a champagne glass. Just saying. That's a story for another day.
Did you?
Yep.
We got time.
No,
we have no hard break at the top of the hour right now.
No, that's for another day.
Come on, let's hear the story.
Not like the Matrix, can't keep a secret, or jumping into action.
Can't keep a secret.
Can't keep a secret. This week, Mark Zuckerberg, actually last week, Mark Zuckerberg bemoaned the fact that everything he's saying is getting leaked to the press. How do we know this? Because it was immediately leaked to the press. Not once, but twice last week. Mark Zuckerberg got super angry at the rest of his employees, saying, every time I say something, you just go and tell everybody about it. You don't really love me. Yeah. Not only did we get a memo leaked to the staff almost immediately about leaks and what they're going to do about it, we also got leaked audio and visual almost immediately after the post-leak meeting, of which he was big mad about it. He said, I want to be able to talk about stuff openly, but I'm also we're trying to build stuff and create value in the world, not destroy it by talking about that stuff that leaks. The funny thing is, the journalists that are covering the leaks and are reporting on them say every time that Zuckerberg says this and complains about the leaks, they get 3 to 5 additional employees calling them, offering to be sources. So it's doing the exact opposite. As every time he complains, they're getting more people going, oh, forget this. I want to be a source now.
It is kind of funny how that world works because I was like Rick Santorum in 2012 had just nearly won. He technically won Iowa, but they gave it to Romney initially, all that stuff. So all of a sudden, Mitt jumps to the front of the pack. And because he'd been affiliated and we were like starting to work on his campaign, I had an email from Politico that was like, hey, I know you're close to him. You don't have to. I won't tell anybody who this is. You just send me anything you want, and it'll really help me out. I was like, go.
Oh yeah, that's how they get this.
But reporters do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They look to see who's close, and then they're like, hey, send me your stuff. I swear, no one will ever know.
Yeah,
and then somebody's like, oh, I'll feel good. Oh, awesome! I get to get this information out. I get to be this cool little secret insider.
Yeah, or they're just upset at what they're doing. Right. So they're like, I'm going to sit here and talk about the fact that you guys are a bunch of rat so-and-sos behind the scenes. So, but every time Mark complains about it, he ends up getting more of them. This is going to work out well. That's great. Also, someone's got to explain to me why it looks like Mark Zuckerberg went and just chose everything out of the FUBU catalog. Just give me one of everything. I don't know what he's going through. Some sort of
He's
crisis.
A weirdo.
Yeah. Alrighty. Now, final choice this morning, Mr. Hunt. Not like the Matrix or jumping into action?
Not like the Matrix, please.
Yeah, not like the Matrix. We are traveling to Salt Lake City for this one. A man recently arrested for manslaughter because he proved that his buddy was not in the Matrix. What exactly happened? Well, 4 a.m. Sunday morning, just yesterday, Ashton Johnathan Mann was arrested. Yeah, I just read too fast. He was arrested at early in the morning on a probable cause of manslaughter. He and a buddy of his were hanging out, smoking the devil's lettuce and playing with guns. They were talking about it in the living room and eventually ended up out in the garage. And they were going back and forth. And one of them, Ashton's friend, said that he is so good he could dodge a bullet. So they took one of the handguns, unloaded them, and then for several times, Ashton pointed the gun at his friend and pulled the trigger. And the friend was trying to jump out of the way. Well, evidently they didn't clear all the bullets out of the gun. And during the last trigger pull, he shot the victim fatally in the chest. Yes. Again, why are we pointing guns at our friends in any situation? You don't point the barrel of the gun at anything you're not intending to kill. That's like one of the top 5 things as far as hunter safety. You never point the barrel at anything you're not intending to unalive.
Amen.
But that's what he did. So, yes. And again, when your buddy says, I can dodge a bullet, the answer is no. No, you can't. Sit down and let the drugs wear off. That's just dumb. Yeah. Again, stupid things. So, yeah, that's it. That's the end of your Tuesday news.
There's a great meme out there right now circulating in the ranching community of a woman riding on top of 2 horses, right? Where she's got one leg on one leg on the other. And
I was thinking the horses were piggybacking.
Yeah, right.
That's so weird.
And then she says, and then below it says, if I'm ever drinking margaritas and say I can do this, I can't.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of, hey, I can dodge a bullet.
Yeah.
If I ever say that while drinking, just a reminder, I can't.
Cannot. No. So that's it. That's the end of You Choose the News, gentlemen. Blake Olsen gets to go back to the newsroom, and we don't have anything until the top of the hour. So we're
going to just jump right into it and continue. Well, it's nearly 7 o'clock. Do I have to wait for it to exactly be 7 o'clock to do the legal?
No, we can do it. But what we'll do is we'll just say this is News Talk 710 KNUS Denver. There we go. That's Karis. That's
the official.
There we go.
Legal. In case you weren't wondering what you're listening to in this.
Yes, just in case.
Craziness today. Well, I do want to talk to you
to take breaks earlier.
About my friend Dan Kaplis and Dan Kaplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Look, Dan Kaplis is the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is so trusted that they're the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankapleslaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. All right, Bill, so I want to go back to the question we had with Tony that you said yes. It is good that America is so dependent on these other countries.
No, not dependent. Trade is good. You're loading the question by throwing dependency in there. It's not it. It's about trade. Trade is an advantage, especially free trade is an advantage to both countries. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Okay, I don't see it because I do see it as dependency.
Why?
And I'm looking at the state of our economy. And I'm going to go back to the book that I think is driving a lot of this thinking, which is free trade has worked too well.
Oh, that sounds awful.
So in the sense
too well. That's horrible.
Look, in economics, there's trade-offs in everything. So in America right now, you can generally get a pretty cheap TV. $300, you can get a pretty good TV for your house. Okay.
Yep.
Nobody, on the other hand, can move up in economic levels. We're stuck. We've got high cost of living. We've got overly high housing costs. People are having to work later in order to retire. There's real problems with our economy. And in this trade-off, we've been willing to trade cheap chips, for instance, on televisions, while everything else, a lot of us, is really struggling.
Well, talk to me about the high cost of living when we were just using cheap TVs as an example. Wouldn't that lower the cost of living? Wouldn't making those luxury goods available lower the cost of living? Wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I also think we're at a place where you see people really stuck in the economy. Yeah. So on one hand, you can get cheap goods, but with regards to moving up economically, there's real struggles there. I think people are depressed more. I think you have high suicide rates. I think there's real problems with our economy. Things aren't being built in America. What you had in the 40s, 50s, 60s, where generally if you were middle class, you could get a relatively affordable house. You could take care of your kids.
But we wouldn't want to go back to the economic structures of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. That would be viewed as crazy by most conservatives. They wouldn't want the economic policies that were implemented in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. They would scream bloody murder if we went back to those policies. So that's not a solution. And the policies that got us there in part are, again, higher base wages, more union representation, lower executive pay, and incredibly high taxes on what we would call the rich. The highest earners were taxed a lot.
Help me understand how taxes got there.
Oh, no, I'm just saying that what were the economic conditions? Those were the economic conditions in the area in which that you thought were fantastic. And those economic conditions, if we replicated them... I'm pointing
to a time in American history when you had better economic mobility.
Yeah, and why did they exist? And part of that would be the economic conditions.
But I'm not saying that everything that existed, the exact conditions during there, we have to replicate. But I'm pointing to another time.
Then how do we make it happen?
Well, I think that's what Donald Trump's trying to get to.
But how do we get back to it? If we don't repeat the economic policies that were there, how do we get back to them? How do we create something that happened in the past without using the same policies that got us there in the first place?
I think there's a fallacy in believing that all of those economic conditions have to be made. But I think there's a fair critique, guys, right now, when you look at our economy, that economic mobility has stalled, that the American people are not doing as well as they have in the past. Yet we have this global trade. You have a lot of money leaving America to go make things cheaper in other countries. That's affected this country. Okay. So you get cheap TVs, but you have little economic mobility. I think there's a fair critique there, and all of economics is trade-offs. So if you're going to go, all right, we're going to go pursue global trade. All right. So what's the impact on America? Has it been unicorns and rainbows? Global trade for the United States of America, or are there things that need to be adjusted here? And when you layer on top of that, I think what Donald Trump's trying to do is utilize the power of the economic might of America to try to get other policy wins. I think the New York Times generally got this right. And it doesn't seem that complicated for Mexico and Canada to address this, particularly Mexico. When you look at the challenges we're facing at the border with cartels and drug trafficking and human trafficking, why doesn't Mexico want to take that more seriously? I don't understand that question.
Are you making an assumption? Are you sure they don't?
Because it just festers there.
But what has happened in the last 12 months? The last year, the Biden administration, when they started paying attention, what happened to the numbers?
Of immigration?
It
seemed to have gone down.
Yeah. And they did that without tariffs. That's weird. So it can be accomplished without tariffs. That's weird that we saw a lessening of the immigration across the border, and they didn't accomplish it with tariffs. So the idea that this is the cudgel that we have, the only tool that we have to accomplish this, I disagree with. And appreciate the phone call that talked about the 40s, 50s, and 60s. The other thing was we had the draft at the time. And so you had a lot of men going off into the military. Then when they came back, they got the GI Bill. They were allowed to buy houses with very low or little interest rates, things like that. Also, remember, we also created out of that time of military service, one of the first planks as far as DEI. So that's another thing that grew out of that. And that would be the preferential treatment and tax cuts for veterans. So when you check the box on your job application that you're a veteran, that would qualify as DEI, because those companies get a somewhere between $5,000 to $9,000 tax break by hiring a veteran. But that would be DEI.
Yeah, I don't see that as DEI at all.
I know you don't, because you define it differently, but that would be one of the first things and that we're trying to do is they were trying
seems to be merit based. You served your country, therefore we're going to give you a break on things. That seems merit based. DEI is picking and choosing based on skin color.
No, that's
or
not
irrelevant.
No, that's not DEI at all.
Like
that's not. No, that's how it's defined. No, it's defined. We've decided colloquially as Americans now that DEI means someone that's unqualified gets the job, and that's not true. It's not ever what it's been. The idea that
That's exactly what it's been.
No, that is not the purpose. Has it been implemented that way? Yes, it has been implemented in certain areas that way, but that's not the reason. That's not the point. The issue of increasing diversity. They wanted to increase the diversity and give the opportunity for the veterans to come back and get the jobs. That would be increasing diversity and inclusion. That's DEI. I know it's difficult to actually hold it accountable based on just like when we talk about inflation, that the actual definition and mechanisms of inflation are difficult as well. So if we talk about the idea of tariffs, how are tariffs then going to increase the upward mobility of the average American? Because what we're going to do based on tariffs is not necessarily. What we're going to do is we're going to pay more. We're going to pay more for goods. How does that increase upward mobility? Because you're operating off the idea that the only way this stuff can get produced is here. It's incorrect. It can be produced somewhere else. They can take all that electronic manufacturing and we can move it into a different country that's not tariffed.
Yeah,
still comes in.
Could.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no reason that, and so the manufacturer is looking at this going, gosh, I can go somewhere else and manufacture my goods there and still import them into America, or I can bring them home to America and increase the cost of my manufacturing tremendously.
So doesn't
make any sense. Doesn't make any sense.
No sense in that exact example. A country that's producing that technology now has every incentive to want to work with the United States of America and abide by our policy requirements.
No, it's abide by our policy requirements.
Right.
We just decided to put tariffs on our two largest trading partners of Canada and Mexico for no particular reason.
Well,
None.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
The reasons are listed out in his example.
And they're stupid and they're wrong and
How
they're dumb.
is addressing human trafficking and the fentanyl crisis stupid and wrong?
They're wrong-headed because there are other ways to deal with them. Tariffs aren't the only other way. He's wanting the cruelty is the point with Donald Trump. He's just trying to be mean. And the amount of human trafficking, and especially the amount of fentanyl that comes in through Canada, is not significant given what we're doing. And even Trump acknowledges that these tariffs are crap, that they are going to hurt Americans, because what did he do with the Canada tariffs? He carved out an exemption for the energy.
Right.
Why?
Because he wants to have...
Why?
Everything's done with America first in mind.
No, but why? Why would he do that? The largest single pile of money that we import, the largest thing that we import from Canada is the oil. And Donald Trump says that Canada would pay us the tariffs. That's what he says happens. So why in the world would you take the largest good on the table and exempt that from the money? If you're saying you're going to raise money for America based on these tariffs, why do you take the single largest thing we purchase and not make money off it? He doesn't. Instead of 25%, he cuts it to 10. He's not making any money off of it. Why does that make any sense if what he says is true? Either he knows he's lying or he's just dumb. One or the other. He's either lying to you saying that the companies are paying for it.
I'm so lost here. I hear you have a guy that's negotiating with Mexico and Canada and China, right?
Yeah.
And Mexico and Canada and China are harming the United States of America with some of their policies. They're not taking fentanyl, human trafficking as serious as they should.
Oh, as serious as we want them to.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as we want them to, right?
Yeah, we want them
so
to.
then how do you get them to take it seriously, Bill?
What happened? What did the Biden administration do in the previous 12 months? They've lowered drugs coming over the border and also the immigration, and they didn't do it with tariffs. So the idea that tariffs is the only way is not true. The Biden administration
did Mexico step in and help with the immigration stuff? What did Mexico do?
They sure did. I didn't prep on it this morning, but Mexico did step in and do things like turn back some of the caravans, do some things as far as housing some more people, not letting as many people into the border. Yes, they did. They made efforts, and we saw the number of illegal immigrants lower at the southern border. And again, I'm not saying that Biden did the right thing or it was perfect or anything else, but I'm saying he accomplished the results we were looking for without tariffs. So this can't be the only way to do it. And again, tariffs raise goods and prices on Americans.
So you can see, I knew this was going to be a spicy debate. You're welcome to join the conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Campos Law text line at 720-819-5115. All right, joining us now on the VIP line, John Decker, White House correspondent. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced retaliatory 25% tariffs on U.S. goods hours after President Trump has announced steep tariffs on most Canadian goods. John Decker giving us some insight on what's the next few hours are going to look like. John, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Well, thanks a lot. President Trump following through with his threat of tariffs being placed upon Canadian and Mexican goods that are imported into our country. Also, Chinese goods imported into our country. There will be tariffs of 10% placed upon Chinese goods. So all of this means that there will likely be some short-term pain that American consumers feel as it relates to many products that we purchase on a regular basis. Even President Trump has acknowledged this short-term pain because those tariffs, the cost of those tariffs, they will be passed along to American consumers. We'll be paying more for produce, for gasoline, for automobiles, new automobiles, as a result of these tariffs. This tariff war, I guess you can call it, that has been commenced by President Trump.
Now, John, I want to ask you, it seems like in my readings of the orders that it's not a lot for Canada and Mexico to respond in order to take these tariffs off the table, which is essentially step up in addressing the fentanyl crisis and human trafficking at the border. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that when you think of those two issues in particular, the amount of fentanyl coming into the U.S., illegal drugs, also the amount of would-be asylum seekers, migrants coming into the U.S., we think about Mexico. We don't think that much about Canada as it relates to those two particular issues. So I don't know that there's much that Canada can do about that because they're not really responsible for either of those problems that the U.S. is dealing with. The other big issue for President Trump is the huge trade imbalance that exists between the U.S. and Canada, the U.S. and Mexico, the U.S. and China. And the way to decrease that trade imbalance, it's pretty logical, is just to purchase more American goods. To decrease our purchase of goods that are coming into the country from those three countries. But as it relates to produce, as it relates to automobiles, there's such interdependence that it's so difficult to do that.
Talking with John Decker, White House correspondent. Are we expecting any announcements today, any negotiations in the kind of the last minute, or should Americans prepare for?
The president has calls that are scheduled with the Prime Minister of Canada, with the President of Mexico, his counterparts. But I do not expect President Trump to take those tariffs off the table. I think that they will go into effect as planned tomorrow. And I think that you can expect, as you mentioned in that introduction, retaliatory tariffs being placed upon all American goods that flow into Mexico, into Canada, into China. So this is a trade war that's happening. And the interesting thing here, a trade war is happening with two of America's allies, Canada and Mexico. There's so much, as I mentioned, interdependence in terms of trade with each of our countries because of a trade agreement that was signed by President Trump during his first year in office, the USMCA, which replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement. And so maybe President Trump would like to see that trade agreement reopened in terms of negotiations, and this is the opening salvo. But in any case, those tariffs going into effect tomorrow.
John Decker, White House correspondent, thanks for keeping us updated on this. This is big news. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right. So where do you fall along the lines on this? Would love for you to join the conversation. Do you believe that this is a good move to address some of the problems that the American economy is facing, that Donald Trump is using the power and might of the American economy in order to get other countries that are taking advantage of the United States to step up and address some of the policy problems we're facing? Or is this an unnecessary trade war? That's what the Wall Street Journal says, calling this the dumbest trade war in history. Would love to hear from you. Phone call 303-696-1971, or you can text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. That's 720-819-5115. Bill is going to say, tell us about wound care. Oh, yes, go to Blake Olson. That's right. Thanks. This has been a fun morning. Let's go to Blake Olson with news and comment.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
All right, thanks a lot, Jeff and Billy. 45 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 68. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
We actually purchase 97% of the oil that you guys export. And that 97% of oil exports from Canada that we purchase in the United States, that accounts for 81% of your guys' entire oil production. Now,
interesting stuff from Layman Politics on X. 7 years in the oil industry in North Dakota. Markets react to President Trump's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. At last check, Dow futures were down around 650 points. See what happens today. But the layman says Canada doesn't have any leverage.
For some reason, you got it in your head that we desperately need to purchase this oil from you. Our oil and energy sector is going to die without Canadian exports. No, it's not. There's a very specific reason we purchase so much. It's because you guys sell that oil to us at a discount. Why would Canada sell so much oil at a discount? Well, simply put, it's because about 75% of your guys' total oil production is sour, heavy crude.
And he says that Canada can't refine it, and the United States does. Police have cleared streets and a freeway of protesters in LA over illegal immigration enforcement. They don't like it. Thousands who are ungrateful people protesting the DJT immigration policies blocked both directions of the 101 on Sunday, causing a huge traffic backup. Of course they did. Probably paid by globalist communists hoping to gin up a riot to make conservatives look bad. Didn't happen. Sorry about that. Here's a patriot from India who did it the right way.
You all deserve it. This country lets you in for your benefit, and then you want to say protest, protest, protest. Finally, if y'all want to protest in USA, y'all should protest for the USA. In this country. But if you are going back in your country, yes, you can protest over there regarding your country or your rights, but not in a different country. That's completely unacceptable.
Amen to that. The schmuckster, corrupt Chucky Schumer, about to be investigated, and the DJT administration going to hold him accountable for weaponizing the justice system and illegally attempting to intimidate and influence the Supreme Court. You've heard him in the past.
But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am
told, he knows.
They are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community.
And they're taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
And that same subject, prosecutors against Trump were funded by USAID. Mike Benz.
This is a palace coup, folks. This is rogue organs of the federal government preventing the American people from electing a president. This push to prosecute Trump by Alvin Bragg, Soros was a minor co-funder. He gave them $10,000. That's it. And the $14 million he gave to the parent company, the fiscal sponsor of FJP, well, that ain't compared to $28 million, the $27 million that USAID gave him. But it all works together because, like I said, Soros is State Department. Soros is USAID. Soros is attached at the hip. Soros Inc. is a donor and drafter in the State Department network, a tag along, like many of these other oligarchs are. Wow, incredible. We just broke huge news here.
It just never ends. Ukraine's President Zelensky spilling the beans. The desperate NATO-backed dictator has now publicly confessed that 58% of the $200 billion of U.S. funds never came to Ukraine. As the Doge investigation uncovers massive theft and money laundering, Zelensky outed Congress on Sunday.
Більше 75. Тобто 100 мільярдів з цих 177 або
And it all started to unravel on Sunday night. Beyonce is extending her record for most awarded Grammy artists in history. Her party buddy, Sean Diddy Combs, is back at a New York City jail after being rushed to the hospital in secret. The New York Post is reporting that Diddy was transported to the hospital last week under the cover of darkness. He's awaiting the sex trafficking trial at a detention center in Brooklyn, and was taken to the hospital for a knee scan after he complained that his knee was bothering him.
Can I ask a quick question here?
Yes.
And Bill, can I ask you this question? Because I don't listen to albums, right? So choosing like the album of the year, that type of thing, is I couldn't ever pick that up. But Beyonce country music album of the year?
Yeah, Carter. Yeah.
Is it a really good country album?
It's really good. It is really good.
I have
was
literally
surprised.
never heard her played on KYGO.
No, because they didn't want to. That was an industry thing.
That's the biggest country station.
But it's an industry thing. Their audience didn't want to hear Beyonce doing a country song, so they didn't play Beyonce doing a country song. Yeah.
But is it country music?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, done through her filter, but it's not.
Kind of. I mean, it kind of. I heard one of them.
It's as country as Morgan Wallen's country.
Well, that's probably true. I mean,
so
some of it.
Yeah. It's as country as Lindsey Sterling. It's as country as all those. Yeah. I mean, I was.
They just knew
their
listeners are too smart, though. They're too smart. I mean, they're
just not going to listen
on country music.
They're not going to want.
They don't want
in there.
I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you.
That's fine.
Wait, so the country music listeners don't want to listen to Beyonce, and it's the country music album of the year?
KYGO. There are some other places in which it did well. There are some other places around the country,
like country stations that did well.
Yeah, they played a lot.
Yeah, they probably play it. There's probably what?
There are a number. Yeah,
60-70% of them.
Yeah, we're the 16th market, 16th, 18th market, depending on what we are in the country. Everything in the top 10 played it. Because it was this crossover. It was good.
Yeah, it's a crossover.
Is it something I'm like, oh my God, it's the best country album? No, I thought there were other ones that were better. Huge surprise, and she didn't even expect to win if you saw it. If you watched it, I was watching live. She had no idea. As when they announced her, she wasn't even prepared. She was like, what? It kind of stood up and then went up on stage and made a presentation.
Humble.
It's, the thing for me is she broke outside the genre and she did something cool. I don't always agree with what they name the album of the year, record of the year. That's for me, it's more who's been nominated that tells you who's really, really good. Who's chosen can be somewhat of a, potluck at times, but I don't think it was the best album of the year. But should she be included in the nominees? Oh, absolutely. She was among the top records of the year, albums of the year with that one. Absolutely, in my opinion.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I just know it's her. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't think this is country, guys, but since it's Monday morning, I think you need a pickup and some biscuits. I saw this one on X, a couple in there, I don't know, late 60s, maybe 70s. I have no idea, but I can't get enough of it.
Taste the biscuit. Taste the goodness of
the
biscuit.
Oh, jeez. That's funny.
Taste the honey sauce.
Taste it.
Taste the goodness of the biscuit with the honey sauce.
That's really good.
To get that honey sauce on me. I don't like the way it tastes with my chicken wings.
It looks like they own a thrift store. I had a friend of mine said, "Man, Buc-ee's needs to hire him." It is, guys. You need to see the video. It is so good. It's 43 in Englewood.
Here, tell you what, hang on a
40
sec. We're gonna do this just for a second here.
Yes.
I don't know if I can feed this the proper. This can't go to the YouTubes. But you were talking about people in their 60s, 70s. Yeah. Let's check out these guys that are in their 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Boom. Yes.
They're in their 60s
They're in their
or
70s.
Are
Yeah,
they?
That's Pete and Boz.
Yeah, those
Two
are
rappers
like
out of England.
old
that's
English,
great.
Irish guys or something.
Yeah, Pete and
Yeah.
Boz, they're out of England. They are fantastic. If we're
I
gonna go,
gotta check that out.
do it the geriatric. Yeah. Yeah, they're awesome. They are so good. Yeah.
I love
Okay.
it. Love
Again,
it.
me and the weird music. Sorry about that. Okay.
Same here.
We now
Same
return
here.
you to your regularly scheduled program.
Absolutely. 45 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Taste the biscuit.
Blake
Taste the
Olson,
goodness
News
of
Talk
biscuit.
710 KNUS.
Very mild Pacific air will dominate here along the Front Range pretty much all week, although temperatures will be up one day, down the next. Overall, they're going to be very, very mild for February as Arctic air will be locked up in the meantime to our north through Friday, but it will be trending colder by the weekend. 65 to 70 today, 50s to near 60 tomorrow, low to mid 60s Wednesday, cooling to the 50s Thursday, nights 20s and 30s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Hey, that's country. Definitely not Beyonce, though. That's definitely not Beyonce. Oh, but just before we get back to the phone calls, we've got Joe from Arvada waiting, Mary from Wyoming, and then New York phone calls as well. 303-696-1971. Want to take a moment to talk to you about a brand new advertiser, Wound Care Associates of Colorado. This one's kind of personal for me. Let me talk to you about it here. Ignoring a problem doesn't ever fix the problem. Ask Joe Biden about the southern border and immigration. How'd that work out for him? Yeah, not so much. See, but I want to talk to you about wounds, small cuts, things that stick around for a while. Those slow healing cuts, those ulcers, those pressure sores don't seem to be a big deal when they start, but they can turn into a very big deal because that tear in your skin and tissue is exactly the place those dirt, germs, and bacteria are looking to enter your body. Slow healing cuts, diabetic ulcers, pressure sores can be incredibly challenging to manage and can dramatically impact the quality of your life. My aunt had some sores that just weren't healing. She ignored them for a while. By the time she went to get them checked out, there was starting to be an infection there. However, the medical facility she was in had other people that were sick. She got MRSA, and she spent some time in the hospital, and it never really healed right. Ended up with some amputations, caused problems for her medically for years, and it started as a tiny cut. This can be serious. That's why I want you to talk to my friends at Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Their expert wound care professionals come directly to your home. We're going to have Jennifer from Wound Care Associates of Colorado here in the studio with us in the 9 o'clock hour on Wednesday. She's going to spend a little bit of time to talk about the experience she had and why she started the company. But this is the important part. You don't have to struggle anymore with transportation, getting yourself to the clinic, waiting in line, possibly exposing yourself to other infections, and then heading on home. Wound Care Associates of Colorado provide compassionate, comprehensive wound care in the privacy and comfort of your home. We're talking about doctors making house calls, nurse practitioners making house calls, coming to your home. They'll assess your wound, they'll develop a personalized treatment plan, and provide all the necessary care to heal your wound. You get expert care in the comfort and privacy of your own home, tailored care plan that addresses your specific needs, and it will reduce the risk of complications and promote faster healing. That's what makes Wound Care Associates of Colorado different. So many wound treatment facilities want to just manage the wound. They want to make sure it doesn't get any worse. That's not helping. If your car had a problem, it's like my car's going, and the mechanic's like, we're just gonna make sure it doesn't get any worse. He's not helping. You break your arm, you go to the doctor. Well, we're just gonna make sure it doesn't break any further. Hey, doc, how about we heal the bones? Can we do that? That's like fixing the problem. Most people out there that are dealing with wounds aren't trying to fix the problem. They're just trying to maintain it. Wound Care Associates of Colorado is different. That's why you need to contact them today. If you or a loved one is struggling with a chronic wound, ColoradoWound.com is the website you need to visit. ColoradoWound.com for all the information and to schedule your in-home visit today. ColoradoWound.com. And when you reach out to him, tell him you heard him out in here on the Jeff and Bill Show because it helps us out. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. Joe Arvada, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning. Happy Monday.
Good morning, Jeff, Billy. This is exactly just, it's just, again, it's sugar to every conservative out there. Well, maybe not every, but the thing that you have to understand, Billy, is that the left is going to hate everything because they've been destroying everything for 50 years, maybe 100 years. Well, since Woodrow Wilson. How long is that? 110, 112 years? The point is that, of course, you're going to dislike it. And there is going to be medicine taken because you can't destroy our economy for the last 50 years and then expect, oh, Donald Trump will be elected president. It'll all get better. No, it's got to be rebuilt from the ground up, Billy. And here's the thing. We do not need these wimps like Justin Trudeau telling us what to do. We do not need Mexico telling us about this, that, and the other. We dictate our own future. We are the behemoth. We establish law and order in the world, Billy, not the left.
So we get to decide everybody's law and order?
Well, here's the thing, Billy, is that what made America great is not the liberal side of things. It was the conservatives of the world that engineered American prosperity, not liberal wimpiness.
Isn't the idea that we need to establish law and order for the rest of the world? Isn't that talking about, being very authoritarian? Isn't that a little dictatorial? I mean, weren't we talking about just prior to Joe Biden being in there that we need to pull up the drawbridges? We need to be more nationalistic. We needed to bring everything home. We need to focus on our own country, not make sure that everybody else around the world is following our laws. So I'm confused. Are we the arbiter of law and order? No. Are we the arbiter of law and order throughout the entire world? Or are we pulling stuff up and we're taking care of our own? I'm curious. Where are we going?
Explain it to you. Great. I'll explain it. I'll educate you. For example, I'll just give you the start of it. The CIA has now been outed as, yes, the creator of COVID-19. You and all of the left told us how it comes from a soup in a wet market and this, that, and the other. But conservatives that use their brains realized it was manufactured in a lab.
Let's put a pin in that.
Now,
wait,
Joe, just let me finish. Let me finish. Don't interrupt me.
I want to talk. No,
okay,
I want to talk to you
that's
about
your problem.
No,
the
I'm
left
curious.
constantly tries to stick their finger in reality.
No, I'm talking about your reality. So I want to talk to you about it. So CIA, your premise is the CIA created the COVID virus, right?
It's coming out, Billy.
No,
you will not like it.
It's just a yes or a no. Yes, that's your premise, right?
It's not my premise.
Okay.
It's reality,
okay,
bro.
So then the CIA was running the Wuhan lab?
They were running the labs in Ukraine and in China.
In China.
Yes.
So CIA was in China running the lab in China.
USAID is a good example.
But that's not CIA, that's USAID. So
CIA had their handprints, their fingerprints all over USAID.
So we were
You're
able to.
You're not reading your media, bro.
No, I'm reading it. It's just I'm reading the thing that I understand which ones are telling me the truth and which ones are blowing smoke in my butt. Here's the thing. So CIA was running the lab in China, right? That's what you're saying.
No, what I'm saying is they had their hands in developing.
No, you said the CIA.
They're engineering viruses, brother.
Yeah, so
you don't understand it because the left doesn't want to admit it was happening. But the conservatives of the world are going to stop it. Stop it.
So I'm just saying, you're saying that the CIA was running the lab in Wuhan, China.
They were helping. Yeah.
Oh, and China was allowing that.
Oh.
And China was allowing that. They were letting our CIA in the.
They were involved in it with the CIA. Yeah. Okay. See, that's what you don't get. Yep. You don't understand. These people are evil and they're in cahoots with the enemy. Yes. You
Okay.
don't get it.
Okay, now
That's
I'll
right.
let you continue in just a second, but just remember that we just heard from Joe from Arvada that the CIA and China was working together in a lab in China
got it.
to create this virus. Okay.
That's right,
Good.
Billy.
Good. Go on to your
You're
next point.
so dumb you don't
Go on.
understand that they
No, I'm
killed
just outlining
Kennedy
it.
too.
I'm just outlining it, sir.
Do you
I'm
get
dealing,
it?
I'm
They
dealing
killed
with,
Kennedy, brother. You just gloss over it. You don't even acknowledge that they killed our own president.
I'm not dealing with the Kennedy thing because it's irrelevant based on the
Well,
conversation
see,
we're having.
no, it
'Cause guess
isn't
what?
irrelevant.
Yes, it
they
is.
do anything to cover
It's
their
completely
tracks.
irrelevant. No, it's completely irrelevant. We're not talking about the
No,
death
it
of a
isn't
president.
irrelevant.
We're
Why
talking
don't you
about whether or
ask
not they ran
America
a
if
thing
it's
in the,
irrelevant? That's why
whether or not-
Donald Trump is in there
we're
mopping
talking
up
about
the mess.
conversation we're having right now. I'm talking about the conversation
Well,
we're having about,
I'm-
and I stopped you
I'm
based on the
schooling
COVID
you.
thing, and
The
now you're going over to the
conservatives are
yes.
straightening out the mess.
Oh yes,
And
because
one of the
China,
ways to do it is
China
to
and CIA
tariff
were working
the
together.
monsters that the
Yeah.
CIA and the FBI have been in cahoots with.
Yes, yeah, because China was working with the CIA
that's right.
under it. Yeah,
You're going
But-
to learn.
But Biden
we're,
was doing it,
we're
then he was a
schooling
criminal.
you
Okay.
as we speak.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. And
super
you will
impressed.
just shut your mouth when you find out the truth.
No,
Joe,
okay.
I appreciate the call. We've got full phone lines. Joe's line will
was
be
interesting.
open 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Our debates on tariffs have gone to CIA. What else we have? All right, let's go to Mary, Wyoming. Good morning, Mary. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning. Hold just a sec. Oh, are you there?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
we got
got you.
Oh, good. Sorry, it's taking you off speaker.
No, it's okay.
I'd like to start with a real quick thing about Beyonce. What I find interesting is that when the majority country singers come over to rock and roll, etc., I didn't get a memo not to listen to them. I thought she did a daggum good job in the country, in the country generic. I thought she did a daggum good job.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because I literally,
Yeah,
and it wasn't just KYGO, on the latest hits on Pandora. I never heard her stuff. So then I was like, what? Country album of the year? I never heard her stuff. That's why I was asking. I don't know. Did you like her?
Why are they ostracizing her? I mean, we don't do that when you come over and do our genre. You know what I mean?
Their country is like that. Country does not like, as a genre, country
Are we
does
just
not like
dancing
people.
around it? Is it racism?
In part, there is
That's
part
what
of that.
I would like to say.
There is part of that.
And I don't use that word often, but I just think, you know what I mean? That should not have happened.
There is part of it. They also, country as a genre doesn't like people that are not country born and bred artists coming into their space. They resist that.
But
also,
I thought,
though,
like Shabuzi, for instance, I didn't think he was country. Somebody told me he wasn't country, but he was like the #1 song all summer long.
Yeah, but again, they don't. There are some things that you can't prevent. But there are some crossovers. Look, I mean, Darius Rucker had some okay time coming over. Steven Tyler did a country album that wasn't necessarily welcomed that much, and he's an old white guy. So there are some issues there. Also, your Pandora may not expose you to it because it's not in your algorithm. And again,
I just put it on country hits.
I know that, but the problem is this: the issue
I like
with
Johnny
Stream,
Cash too much.
No, the issue with Stream is the algorithm is very, very bad exposing you to new music. They look at what you like and they play things that you like. It has a really, really hard time with new music discovery that is outside of what you typically listen to. So your algorithm would never pull Beyonce as a possible country artist based on a number of other things you listen to. It just wouldn't. And that's a blind spot inside of streaming. But that's
Mary, what else you got for us?
Well, regarding tariffs, I believe it's more than just tariffs. As I was saying, I believe, and this is not the man Trump. I'm all about the policies. I believe the policies that he's implementing, you address strictly like tariffs. I believe it is more than that. And I believe he's playing chess. I believe that there's a whole bunch of things that are in the air right now that will come together. And yes, you are right. Tariffs are going to raise prices. I do understand that. Just like I believe if we start giving living wages to the American people, prices are going to go up too. So
Mary?
yeah, we are going to have an increase. And then I'd like to just finish by saying, I believe that, you used to laugh about the thing about Panama. It was on the thing that Rubio went over there. They're going to cut China out of that, and we're not going to be paying any fees.
Yeah, Mary, I appreciate the call. I agree with you.
We'll see if we're not paying any fees. I'm not certain. I'm not certain about that.
I saw that China's heading out with regards to its leasing on the entry and exit ports.
Yeah, technically, though, there wasn't necessarily China. That was Hong Kong. So it was a different type of a lease in that area. Do you know when when Panama signed the Roads and Bridges Initiative? Because that's what it was. The expansion of China's Roads and Bridges Initiative, in which they were going to start to build infrastructure around the rest of the world. They signed that in 2017. I remember who our president was in 2017. Didn't care then. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think their critique was right that China wasn't in control.
I'm just saying.
And now,
but they aren't in control.
Leaving.
They're not in control of the canal, though. They never were. They leased 2 ports.
They had those 2 ports, and now they're leaving.
They leased 2 ports through Hong Kong. Not necessarily leaving. They're cutting ties with the Roads and Bridges Initiative.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that Hong Kong's not.
I see that as a win. All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
lot to watch today with regards to tariffs and whether or not they're going to be implemented. President Trump having calls later today with the Prime Minister of Canada, the President of Mexico. Bill, you think come midnight, those tariffs kick on?
Yeah, I do. Now, here's the question. Question I've got for you, Jeff. How long do they last?
Yeah.
How long is he going to keep them in place? Are they going to be there for a week, a month, several months, 6 months? What's your feeling on this? How married to this idea of tariffs to get Canada and Mexico falling in line is Donald Trump, in your opinion? How long do you think he keeps the tariffs?
That's a good question, because here's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out how committed Donald Trump is to disrupting a globalist economy, or are the tariffs tools to drive other policy agendas? So, for instance, if you read through his tariff order, the primary issue he wants to address is the border, fentanyl, human trafficking, and the drug cartels. He hates them, hates the drug cartels. And I agree with him. I think that they have killed more people, more Americans than just about any war we've ever fought in, and we don't treat them as enemies. So what is he willing to do? Is he really seeking to re-engineer our economy, which that type of disruption is going to cause pain? I'm not dismissing that at all. Or is he more motivated to address other policy ends? I think if I had to percentage it out, 85-15%. 85% towards dealing with these drug cartels and the border, 15% trying to address a globalist economy, which has led to problems in our country. So that's where I fall along the line. So as soon as Mexico and Canada show a little bit of interest and steps towards addressing these problems, I think he pulls it out. I don't think he's that interested.
Isn't Donald
percentage-wise
Trump a globalist,
at trying to take over?
Wouldn't Donald Trump qualify as a globalist?
I don't know.
Because, I mean, he's built, he's wanted to build towers elsewhere. He was looking at Trump Tower Moscow. He's talking about expanding into Gaza. He's talked about other things. When he manufactured his things like his ties and some other stuff, they were all made in China. He has business dealings in China, had during his last presidency and still does, has a bank account in China. And I don't know. I think he would qualify somewhat as a globalist.
But do you think, though, that he's that motivated to change the entire economy?
No.
Do you think that's the reason he's doing this?
No. I think he's doing because he doesn't understand how economics works at the core.
That's where I disagree. All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
KNUS.
a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history, and Donald Trump's your president. Let's kick it off. We got a whole hour for you planned of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after News and Comment with Blake Olson, Johnathan Pullen's going to join us, the DEA special agent in charge. You heard all the stories about the raids that took place last week. Well, you are going to get special insight here in just a second. You're not going to want to miss it. God bless the good men and women of the DEA and what they're doing for our communities, because if it wasn't for them, it would just get worse and worse. So I am so looking forward to this conversation, get insights into what happened, how things are going in the state, as well as maybe any hints to what may be coming. So we'll give you all that and more. But first, News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
46 and cloudy in Denver. Thanks a lot, Jeff and Billy. Expecting a high of 68. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Wow, it's going to be a beautiful day today. Our top story.
The United States only imports 15% of goods and services internationally. The rest is domestic. Now, a lot of you are concerned about what's happening with Canada and Mexico. Well, you remember that 15% I talked about? Canada and Mexico only produce 5% of that.
The moderate reviewer. Love this guy. Stocks are seeing volatile trading this morning on the futures market as investors react to DJT's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. Trump has said more tariffs are on the way as he's expected to speak with leaders from Canada and Mexico today.
20% of the GDP of Canada comes from the United States trade agreements, and 75% of their trade happens with the United States. Now that means if prices go up because of imported goods from Canada, Americans are going to refuse to buy them, meaning Canada's not going to make any money. And as we're 75% of their trade, that's going to be detrimental to their economy.
The moderate reviewer. You got to check him out. The Trump administration working to shut down the agency responsible for foreign aid, according to Elon Musk. He said, U.S. aid is beyond repair. U.S. aid is the largest distributor of foreign aid in the world and gave some $72 billion last year to programs for everything from women's health and AIDS treatment to anti-corruption efforts and access to clean water. And guess what? Prosecutors against DJT. Yes, authorities still looking for clues after Friday's deadly plane crash in Northeast Philadelphia. 6 people on board lost their lives while another person on the ground also died. The jet went down Friday night, bursting into flames and sending debris scattered across several blocks. Hey, Democrats have it all together. They completely understand this gender mess. What a train wreck with the DNC leadership.
We're finding out ways to expedite this. Because of our gender balance provisions on this next ballot, you will be able to vote for 2 candidates of any gender on the next ballot. Okay? So on this next ballot, you will be able to vote for 2 candidates of any gender on the next ballot. If 2 candidates receive, I'm going to turn to Helen to clarify this last part.
You are in this next ballot where you have 2 votes. As the chair has said, you may vote for 2 males, 2 females, 2 of any gender, okay? No, you can't do that because we've got to balance. You could vote for 1 of any gender, okay? Or no, non-binary gender, excuse me. It is late, okay?
And then after that, they ended up choosing a man. WTF. Wow.
But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
Ah, the schmuckster, corrupt Chucky Schumer, about to be investigated, held accountable for weaponizing the justice system and illegally attempting to intimidate and influence the Supreme Court.
So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community.
And they're taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Stay tuned today. Ukraine's President Zelensky, he spills the beans. The desperate NATO-backed dictator publicly confessed that 58% of the $200 billion of U.S. funds never received by Ukraine. Ukraine never got them, as Doge uncovers massive theft and money laundering. In sports, the Mavs, Luka Doncic, goes to the Lakers, headed to the Lakers for Anthony Davis over the weekend. I'm sure it was all orchestrated by the NBA. They need the help. Pelicans at the Nuggets tonight at 7 o'clock tip-off. Avalanche over the Flyers on Sunday. 43 in Aurora, 44 in Lakewood, and 46 in Denver. Going to be a beautiful day today. Jeff and Billy continue. Do you have your coffee and your bacon and your eggs? And
Taste the biscuit. Taste the goodness of the biscuit.
yes, I can't get enough of that. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Very mild Pacific air will dominate here along the Front Range pretty much all week, although temperatures will be up one day, down the next. Overall, they're going to be very, very mild for February, as Arctic air will be locked up in the meantime to our north through Friday, but it will be trending colder by the weekend. 65 to 70 today, 50s to near 60 tomorrow, low to mid-60s Wednesday, cooling to the 50s Thursday, nights 20s and 30s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. You saw it last week, the heroes of the DEA breaking up some of these Venezuelan gang operations, these underground clubs that surprisingly Bill and I were not invited to. So, we don't get invited to
Not
underground
part of the cool
clubs.
kids club anymore. No.
I'll turn up Stefan's headphones here so he can hear. But joining us live in studio right now, Johnathan Pullen, DEA Special Agent in Charge. And you know the name and the voice, the Public Information Officer for the Rocky Mountain DEA, Stefan Tubbs. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Big week last week,
to say the least.
So tell us about some of the busts. If people maybe just saw some of the headlines, didn't know the details.
Yeah, so we really targeted TDA pretty heavily. That's the Venezuelan drug gang. If you know anything about them, they started as a prison gang in Venezuela and have expanded all over South America. And now they're here in Denver. And for quite a while, I think people in Denver thought that there was no TDA in Denver whatsoever. And when I first arrived here, there was a lot of people talking about TDA, this Venezuelan gang. I never heard of them before. And then, talking to other people in law enforcement and the political circles, it seemed like no one wanted to say the name TDA. It was like saying a 4-letter word in church.
Really?
But then shortly after I arrived here in the summer, my guy sees 12 kilos of fentanyl from a TDA gang member coming across the mountain into Denver. And that really just opened our aperture into who they are and what they're involved in.
Yeah. So you guys hear about this underground club. Obviously, you probably can't get into the details of how you heard about it, but you guys are surveilling this underground club. They don't show up until 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's after Billy and I get.
Right.
These folks are like,
they're just starting to party while you're going to work. Right.
I know.
I mean, let's be fair. They showed up at 4, boss. They
Right.
showed up at 4 a.m.
That's right.
We hit
decided
the place
to crash.
at 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. These parties usually start between 2 and 3 a.m. when the other bar is shut down, and it's a makeshift nightclub, right? It's not a place with a big neon light outside where you're going to say, oh, that looks like a great spot to go have a beer, and you just say, hey Bill, let's go in there and have a beer tonight. It's not that kind of spot. It's an invitation only event.
Yeah.
They advertise it on social media. They hire their own DJ, and you got to know a TDA guy or be in that circle to get in.
Wow. So you guys are like scoping it out. I imagine. Like one of my favorite movies is the Bad Boys genre, right? Where they got I'm thinking Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, like in a van.
Our guys are cool.
I was gonna say you guys are much cooler, but you're like scoping it out. You're like, all right, guys, there's enough of them there. All right, move, and then those guys, you guys got them without a single shot fired.
Yeah, and that's exactly really the way it really did play out, sort of like a movie, because there was a lot of hiccups. I mean, number one, it snowed, and so the whole we've been watching this club for months, and so the success is dependent on people actually being there. Yeah. And so it snowed, so we thought, well, maybe they're not going to show up because it's going to snow. We don't know how much snow.
It's 8 degrees.
Snow will never stop a good party.
No,
should it?
It's 8 snow outside, snow inside. It was 8 degrees outside.
8 degrees, and then there was an armed carjacking about 2 a.m., maybe 1:30 in the morning, a block away, which brought in a pretty heavy police presence. Obviously completely unplanned on our part. And that freaked them out for a little bit. So some of the guys were circling the neighborhood, trying to figure out if the party was on, and after a few hours, we were able to put a few things in place to make sure the party was going to go.
How do you do a breach where there's not a shot fired? Is it about overwhelming force? Is it about how do you do that so well with your guys that it catches these guys off so well?
Yeah, so every operation is different, right? I mean, in this one, you got 50 people inside. You can't just barrel into the middle of 50 people who some of whom are armed, and we did seize guns from the place. And then if they shoot at you, then who are you going to shoot at? There's people all around you, right? So you have to, for law enforcement, you have to be very specific about who you're going to aim at if you're going to actually fire your weapon, right? And so in this kind of situation, it's a sort of an outside in approach, right? They were all on the inside. We were all on the outside. We probably had 100 special agents and other officers out there. And we breached, the different entry points, and there was multiple different entry points. We used a series of drones as well. That's cool. And then, and we brought them all outside. But part of the problem with doing it that way is that all the drugs, all the guns, all the money that they had on their persons all ended up on the floor.
Oh yeah, so then you don't know
who's got what.
This ain't mine.
It's not mine. Right.
It sounds like middle school all over again, right? Which guys? I don't know. We're not getting in trouble because we all dropped it. Wow. So explain to folks how a raid like last week, and maybe some of the other stuff. You guys caught 2 other guys, I remember, and maybe some other things I missed. But explain how last week saves American lives.
So, I mean, I don't think there's any question that this TDA gang is a violent gang. Everybody's seen the videos on TV about what happened in the apartments in Aurora. Yeah. These guys are going to apartment buildings with pistols and AK-47s. These are serious criminals, okay? Right. And that's what we're targeting right now. And in the new administration, we've been given some extra authorities and within Title VIII, which is the Immigration Authority, and we're supporting ICE and HSI with that authority. We've also just gotten support from the Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security to do more, right, and to go farther. And I think that's what you're seeing here. The idea of getting the worst first is sort of what we're operating under right now. These people we're going after are criminals. They're in criminal databases of the DEA and the ATF and Homeland Security. They're not, some immigrant who just came across the border and is looking to feed his family and wants to just find a job in construction. Okay, these people showed up at this party carrying guns, carrying drugs, driving Mercedes G-Wagons, and dressed in designer clothes. So these are serious bad guys. But in addition to that, throughout the week, we probably ran well over a dozen other operations.
A dozen other ones. Wow.
Yeah. And not all as high profile as 50 people at a nightclub.
Yeah, right.
But we seized, on Monday, we seized 130,000 fentanyl pills from a Sinaloa cartel group. So you can't put a number on how important that is to the city of Denver. We really have woken up this week safer than we were last week.
I love that line, man. We woke up safer this week than we did last week.
But it's true. It's true,
Right.
Jeff. I mean,
Right.
the 130,000 pills that were seized a week ago today, DEA labs say now 50% of those pills contained a potential fatal dose. So you're talking potentially 65,000 lives.
Right.
And that's not hyperbole. It's fact. And the work that was done not only Sunday, a week ago Sunday, week ago yesterday, a week ago today, the operations, to John's point, there were more than a dozen of them, and we're targeting the worst of the worst. These are people you do not want as living next to you, whether it's the apartment next door or the home next door.
And I was reading through Trump's executive orders on the tariffs and stuff, and the way he describes these Mexican cartels, right? These are serious threats. When you look at the number of Americans that are dying as a result of these cartels, it dwarfs any actual military threat this country's ever faced.
Yeah, we're talking 100,000 people last year and the year before that and the year before that. I mean, if you could tell me some other crime in this country, obviously cancer is a huge killer, right? There's obviously, health issues that are huge killers in this country. But when we're talking about crime, right, things that are avoidable, gun violence, car crashes, there is nothing else that touches drug poisonings in this country, right? 100,000 people last year. It's absolutely insane.
But so the response I often get from folks when I debate this, and I'm 100% on the side with you guys, that this is a serious threat to Americans that needs to be taken very seriously with law enforcement, with the military. But people go, look, we're the ones that want these drugs. Americans do. If there wasn't a market, you wouldn't have the cartels.
Right.
So what do you do about the fact that there's such an addiction to this stuff in this country?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I mean, I think a lot of that is sort of born out of the people misusing prescription drugs, and I think that's why we're in this position we're in now. We really started to crack down on prescription drug abuse and doctors and pharmacists, maybe 8 or 10 years ago in a way that we'd never had before.
There's a great book on this called Dreamland, by the way.
Yes, exactly. And so once we crack down on that, what happens? Those people are still addicted to opioids. So they're going to go find another thing. And for a while, they found heroin. And heroin was readily available, and it was grown in Mexico. And then fentanyl came on the market, and it's purely synthetic. The chemicals come out of China. They're shipped directly to the cartels in Mexico. They make it. They put those pills on our streets right here in Denver. And for a long time, I think people really believe, and some people still misunderstand, but they believe that those were actual pharmaceutical pills. They see a little blue oxy or an Adderall, and they think it's legitimate medicine, but it contains fentanyl and it's deadly.
We're talking with Johnathan Pullen. He's the DEA special agent in charge of all those great busts you saw last week. And joining us also in studio, Stephen Tubbs, the public information officer for Rocky Mountain DEA. All right, so we're getting some text message questions in here. And I'm not sure this is true, but did the Denver mayor claim that there were nonviolent people picked up yesterday or last week in some of these?
I don't know.
I'm not aware.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are bad guys you got, right?
Well, look, so at that club, I mean, there were a few people who were released because we couldn't charge them with a crime or they weren't here in the country illegally. But I'll say this, that the people who showed up at that nightclub were associates of the Venezuelan gang TDA. So while they may not have been all charged with a gun or a drug offense, they are people we've been watching for a while. And the fact is they're here in the country illegally, and ICE has a responsibility to act upon those crimes.
Well, let's expand on that. This new role that you guys have partnering with ICE. Tell us more about that.
So I think, it's still to be fleshed out, quite frankly. I think, we've had that new authority for about a week now. So, there's still some training for us to go through. And it's not. It's definitely not a section of the law that my agents are really familiar with. We don't even have the paperwork to support picking up an illegal alien and putting him in a jail cell. So we rely on ICE for all of that. So what we're really doing is going after drug offenders, right? And so that's what you've seen in this last week is we're going after people in our cases who are involved in drug trafficking groups, and we're targeting them. And quite frankly, a lot of those folks that we've seen in this last week are illegal aliens. I mean, so listen, it's no secret that TDA is a big problem here in Denver. We have the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco cartel operating right here in the city of Denver. These people from Mexico send their operatives right here to Colorado to sell these drugs and move their money back south. And that's who we're targeting.
Talking with Johnathan Pullen, DEA special agent in charge. Let's expand on that. Donald Trump has said that the military can now weigh in on these drug cartels. How is that going to change things?
My God, I hope it changes everything.
Really?
Right? I mean, 100,000 people lost their lives last year. Can you imagine a country where that doesn't happen this year? I mean, I can already tell you, I'm predicting here on your show that last year we seized 3 million fentanyl pills. That's more than ever in the history of Colorado. Okay, the year before that we set a record and we broke it in 24. I'm predicting we're not going to break it this year. You know why? Because of exactly what we're talking about this morning. Because we're taking these offenders off the streets, and we have some new authorities, and we have the support of the Department of Justice and Homeland Security to get people out of this country who are not here just to try to make a better life for themselves. They're here to commit crimes.
I'm worried though. I'm a little worried about these cartels because these are guys that are vicious, right? When I look at Donald Trump's already faced 2 assassination attempts, and maybe I'm going off of, and look, I've watched every Netflix, movie about cartels and all this stuff. I'm fascinated by it. Yeah. And sometimes there's this argument made like, well, there's kind of a stalemate. At least we know who the drug cartels are. Once you take them down, you're going to have new players in here and all that stuff. And maybe it's better to just kind of have that cartel lead there because at least, we know who it is.
Yeah.
I mean, out of all the fights Donald Trump can pick, Russia, China, the cartels kind of scare me more than anything else.
Yeah, these guys are serious bad guys, right? I mean, they're essentially completely militarized within Mexico.
Yes.
And there's essentially a war going on between the 2 largest factions of the Sinaloa cartel after, El Chapo got taken off several years ago and his partner El Mayo was taken off last year. So now the kids of those 2 guys, the Chapitos and the Mayitos, are warring within Mexico to, gain control of the Sinaloa cartel, which is the largest criminal organization in the world. So, I mean, we're talking $50-60 billion a year in profits they rake in. So these guys are warring for control of that. But what we're hearing in just 1 week from sources is that they're running scared. They've seen what's happened across cities, in America this past week, and they're really worried about how that's going to affect their operations, not only in the United States, but along the border and within Mexico. So they're already sort of having discussions about how they shift away from the U.S., which is amazing.
Talking with Johnathan Pullen, DEA special agent in charge. Johnathan, let's talk about local law enforcement. Do you guys coordinate with them? Governor, mayor, are they being helpful? Is the sanctuary, city, state policies impacting you all?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, listen, we have task force officers who are assigned to our teams at DEA, and it's just all the other federal agencies do as well. As you know, Colorado has laws on the books that essentially prohibit them from sort of assisting with immigration related enforcement. So we're not involving our task force officers and our local guys in the immigration related piece of this operation, right? But if we're going out on a drug warrant, it's the same, right? They're there to support us and they're behind us.
Johnathan Pullen, DEA special agent in charge on the Jeff and Bill Show live. Lurking in the background is a voice and a face Stephen Tubbs. But we'll get him on the
Is that what I'm doing right now, lurking?
Yes, you are. You are lurking.
I know, I'm a creeper.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, he's here's the thing. Okay, now, this is Johnathan. This is just between like all of us here. Stephen's, I'm turning his headphones off so he can hear us. But the fact that he sits here in the studio and is quiet right now, I mean, dude.
It's hard. I know.
Exactly. He's chewing his fingernails.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is what I've got for you, Johnathan. I want to know how, in your experience, is the fentanyl and the other illicit drugs coming into Colorado, because I believe most of our audience would be really, really shocked about how easy it is to get the drugs right here into the Centennial State. How's it arriving?
Planes, trains, and automobiles. And if you can imagine it, they're doing it. If we catch a drone coming across the border, then they stop sending the drone and they go under the border. They build a tunnel. They send it literally on a train. They send it in cars. They send it in 18-wheeler trucks. They send it I've seen, I mean, this is graphic, but I've seen, puppies' bellies sliced open and drugs slid inside, and they sew it back up and they send the puppy up. I mean, if you can imagine it, listen, I've seen it in kids' diapers. Okay. I mean, it's horrible. What these people will do to move these drugs. But as it gets into Colorado, we're talking about it's coming up I-25 and it's coming over from Los Angeles on 70. And it's coming into our cities and our neighborhoods. And it's so easy to get. And this is what's so scary is like, we all take medicine, right? We all take a pill every day. I took a cholesterol pill this morning. Everybody takes a pill. It's so normal. And this is what's scary about this threat. It's not like heroin where you have to plunge a needle into your arm, and heat up some liquid and do that. Now we're just talking about, you just pop a pill in your mouth and it looks like real medicine, but it's not. It's deadly. And you can get it so easily. You can get it on, social media apps. You can go on the web. You can find it. A guy will ship it to your house. You don't even have to pay him in cash. You can just pay him with Cash App on your phone, and your teenagers can just get it, and you'll never even know. You're not going to some deep, dark alley, in downtown Denver somewhere. You can just do it from your couch.
It's
insane.
easy. And pills are very easy to pass along. And the other thing is that people don't take into account, in my opinion, Johnathan Pullen, DEA special agent in charge here on the show, is that you have a lot of kitchen table pharmacists mixing the drug. These aren't people that are trained in anything other than cutting the drugs and then mixing them together. They don't care about the amount. Fentanyl is a boost for them to make profit because fentanyl's cheaper than the other stuff they're putting it in with. So it's just like when back in the day, you talk about in the 60s and 70s, how the drug dealer was cutting oregano or grass shavings into the pot that you were buying. Same thing. Right. They're cutting the fentanyl in order to lessen the amount of the other drugs they're having to put in there, but they don't care how much goes in. They have a certain percentage in one, a certain percentage in another. They're not measuring it out. They don't care. And that's why in some ways the pills that are laced with fentanyl become a Russian roulette, because one dose can be just fine. You can get 5 or 6 doses from the same dealer, but it's that one pill that was cut incorrectly, the one pill that kitchen table pharmacist was putting together, and that's got more fentanyl than you can possibly ever imagine, and boom. It's that easy.
Yeah.
And they just don't understand that.
And that's right. And we have a campaign called One Pill Can Kill. And I'll tell you a quick story. I mean, if you're not an opioid addict and you get one of these pills right now, 5 out of 10 are deadly. That's what our labs tell us. So if you happen to get one of those 5, it'll kill you. You'll stop your heart now. But I've seen opioid addicts who sometimes maybe take 10 or 20 of these pills in a day because they're so addicted, and they can take a higher dose because they have a tolerance built up. Recently, I just came from Oklahoma last year, and we had 2 20-year-olds dead in a car one morning, and they had taken one pill. And these were addicts, so they had a tolerance. They'd taken one pill, they split it in half, put it on a piece of tinfoil, smoked it. They both died from half a pill. So that tells you if an addict can die who has a tolerance built up from half a pill, sometimes these pills have enough to kill an elephant.
Yeah. And they don't know. The guys that are shipping them out don't have any clue.
Oh, they don't.
Right. They can't tell you and say, these are the heavy ones, these are the light ones. Again, they don't care.
Right.
They don't care because I understand the idea that we're worried about that. Why would they cut fentanyl into the drugs? Because why would you possibly kill your consumers? The issue is when you have millions upon millions of consumers and they continually get replaced by new ones coming into the system. It doesn't matter. As long as the money keeps flowing, the consumers will be replaced.
That's right.
Well, I'm interested in, I'm going through your background here. Oh my goodness. 21 years with the DEA everywhere from Hong Kong to Washington, D.C. to Oklahoma, now Denver. You've probably learned a lot about these cartel operators.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was in China, we saw Sinaloa cartel operatives, running around Beijing.
Tell me the type of person who runs these cartels.
Listen, these are vicious, evil people. Okay. They don't care about you. They don't care about your kids. All they care about is greed. That's it. They just want more and more money. That's all that they care about. And within their own country, I mean, it is violent. There's human trafficking involved. We even see human trafficking here in Denver with these cartels where, we'll have immigrants that come across the border. These guys just want to get a job in construction, but they had to pay somebody to get here, right? And the guy they paid happened to be a coyote for the Sinaloa cartel. So then when he gets up here, somebody calls him and says, hey, I need you to do something for me today. Since you owe me, go take that car and go deliver these drugs to a guy. And he says, I don't want to do that. And then the coyote says, well, you're going to do it because I know who your family is. I'm going to kill him if you don't. So what's the guy supposed to do? Because they will kill him. It's not like, law enforcement in the U.S. is pretty great, right? We have a lot of safety and security here. It doesn't exist like that in Mexico. So they will kill his family. So what is he supposed to do?
Powerful conversation with Johnathan Pullen, DEA special agent in charge as well. Joining us, Stephen Tubbs, the public information officer, will continue. You're not going to want to miss this. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're honored to have live in studio Johnathan Pullen. He's the DEA special agent in charge. Yes, you saw those busts last week of the TDA secret nightclub that Billy and I aren't invited to. In fact, we're not invited to any nightclubs, let alone secret underground TDA nightclubs.
I show up to a nightclub now and they're like, go away, old man. Your kid is not inside. We'll tell them dad's here. You can wait in the car. That's pretty much what happens. When I show
You know
up
what
to
would
clubs.
happen if you guys did show up last overnight Saturday into
This feels
Sunday?
like a threat.
We would have taken your ass into custody as well.
That's what I figured.
And we'll sort it out later.
No. I'm just here to research, guys.
Yeah.
I'm just here to research.
I'd be asking Stefan, how many body cavity searches are we supposed to do here?
We would have had a couple special ones for you boys.
I know. I love you.
You hear that voice? It's Stephen Tubbs. He's the public information officer for Rocky Mountain DEA. 6 years with 710 KNUS here in the afternoons. Stephen, you and I were talking off air right before about how the system's set up. I thought you laid it out great, right?
Well, I don't want to steal the thunder from the boss, but I will say, and I've told you guys on this show before, Billy was talking about the kitchen chemist or whatever. It's worse than that. I mean, we've seen photos. You can go online and search. There are pictures I have seen where this stuff, these fentanyl pills, are the end product, but they're mixing the chemicals. I've seen them literally in old toilets. That's the mixing bowl. I've seen them being mixed in what I would describe as a cow pasture in 55-gallon drums. There was one story I heard last year that blew me away, that some cartel members felt that if you drank a certain type of Mexican beer while you're making this poison, that makes you immune. I mean, we're not talking about rocket science here, right? And then the other thing that I know John can talk about as well is the profitability. John said last segment, it is about greed. They don't care if they kill your children, Jeff. They don't care if they kill your children, Bill. They don't care if any of you listening, they don't care if they kill your grandmother. They do not care. It's all about money. And when it comes to the cost, I like to say, if in a positive way, we could get a group of people together and say we could make a widget for 2 cents and sell it to some poor sucker for $1, $5, $60, we would do that all day long. The amount of money is incredible. And what, John, is a pill costing right now in Denver?
Right. So that's what we're talking about here, is that in Mexico, they can manufacture these pills between 2 to 4 cents per pill. Right. So by the time that hits the streets of Denver, the retail on the street is maybe between $2 and $4. Okay. So that's an incredible markup from 2 cents. But then if you go a little bit further outside of the metro area, let's say you get up onto an Indian reservation in Wyoming or in Montana, which we also cover, you're talking maybe $60 per pill for that same pill that costs 2 cents to make within Mexico. Incredible profit margin.
So on the show, Bill and I often talk about having a magic wand to be able to change something. If you had all the power to be able to address one thing that you think could really turn the direction of this country against the fentanyl epidemic we're facing, against the cartel activities, the human trafficking, all that, and we gave you that, what would do it?
I think, honestly, taking out these cartels within Mexico, right? I mean, listen, what's going to happen is we're going to see this year that we're going to have less fentanyl coming in. I don't, there's no doubt in my mind about that because of the actions we're taking now. But as we've seen over decades in this country, the demand is going to shift, right? People will shift to a different type of drug. They'll seek out prescription drugs again, or maybe they'll seek out Colombian cocaine, right? So we have to be, really on top of what the next level threat is, right? We can't always, at DEA, we can't think about what's happening just today. While it's important, we got to be planning for 3 to 5 years down the road and looking at the global threats. That's why we're in 69 countries around the world, right? So are the Thais going to start producing heroin again and sending that back? Or is heroin going to pop up again in Colombia? Is it going to come in with their cocaine as well? I mean, so we're looking at these things long term. But I mean, the biggest drug threat to the United States right now, and the biggest drug threat we've ever seen in our lifetimes, Jeff, is fentanyl, right? And that is solely coming out of Mexico with chemicals from China. So if we can really clamp down on the China piece so the chemicals don't come anymore, and then really go hard, not just on the cartel members in the U.S., but in Mexico, whether that's DEA action or military action or the Mexican government action, whatever that looks like. That's the only way to really stop this threat.
Johnathan Pullen, DEA special in charge. We've gone through these shifts culturally. The war on drugs in the 80s and 90s, and then in the early 2000s. I remember this because I was like in college. You ran around with folks going, "Wow, the war on drugs failed. The war on drugs failed." Now I'm hearing 69 countries that we're operating in. Help me on square where we're only a few weeks into a new administration, but help me square where we are now with the DEA, with these battles on drugs. Is it fair for people to claim that the war on drugs failed?
We don't call it a war on drugs. I mean, I think, listen, I think this is a constant struggle within our country. Right. Addiction is just savage, right? And we've been fighting that battle for years. It's so glorified in the United States through television and through movies and through music. I mean, if you think about just music alone, how drug use and drug abuse is so glorified.
Right.
I mean, there's no question why we're here, right?
That's exactly right.
And so, we have to protect the next generation from that kind of stuff. And so there'll always be addiction. I don't think that this has been around for 100 years, right? We've been fighting drug battles in the United States for 100 years. But I think the question is really whether or not we can save lives, right? I mean, last year we lost 100,000 people. I mean, I think a real measure of success is us bringing that number down year over year over year.
If I could add as well, guys, the days of not talking about addiction in families, I think at least over the last couple of years, those days are over. There are people listening right now to this show that they don't have to go 1 or 2 degrees out to have addiction, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs. Gone are the days that's just should be put under the rug. And then when it comes to fentanyl, you've got to, if there's one thing that you take, besides what the boss has been saying, is right now that is the leading cause of death. Fentanyl and drug poisonings, the leading cause of death between Americans 18 and 45. That's gun violence, suicides, any other type of violence, or natural causes. The leading cause of death for our young people right now, 18 to 45, are drug poisonings and fentanyl. Yeah.
So you got to have that conversation. These are hard conversations to have with your family, with your friends, and with your kids. But you'll never forgive yourself if you think something is going on and you don't have that simple conversation about it.
And also, guys, one other thing is, if you're listening right now, well, that would never impact. If your child has a cell phone, they are a couple of texts away, potentially, from having a drug dealer right there on their phone.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I want to jump into here because Johnathan Pullen, DEA special agent in charge, along with Stephen Tubbs, that voice here on KNUS. I understand that a lot of parents come at it with, no, my kids are too smart, or my kids would never make that choice. My kids know better. Really? Take your kid to the gas station and ask them how to fill up the car.
Mm-hmm.
They've seen you do it dozens of times. They should basically know it, but they don't. Even the beginning driver doesn't know everything about filling up the car, but they assume they do. A lot of our kids assume they know a lot about drugs, how to stay away from them, and more importantly, how they can avoid being a statistic. They're wrong over and over and over again. There's a reason why the Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards are such a pile of crap. Because kids make weird choices. So that just remember that. We don't elect our president based on the Nickelodeon Kids' Choices Awards because kids make strange choices and strange decisions. So don't trust your children to know the impact. And they don't often realize that small choice can impact them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And they don't see that. So they're looking at this as a small decision, something minor. Mom and dad, I know a lot about this. You need to have that conversation. You have to have that conversation because thinking they know means they really don't know.
And I think a lot of people think, perhaps suburban moms think that this is something that happens to kids in the inner city, right? This is not a problem that they have to deal with. And I've heard that over and over, like, this is not something that goes on in Douglas County. My goodness, right? This is something that happens in Douglas County. It happens in wealthy and affluent communities. It happens in poor communities. It happens to every demographic. Fentanyl doesn't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian. It doesn't care. It crosses all socioeconomic boundaries. And so I think people really got to focus on, talking to their kids about this. As Stefan said, 18 to 45-year-olds, it's the leading cause of death. And so you got to have that conversation. You got to have that hard conversation.
Talking with Johnathan Pullen. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's been an honor to have Johnathan Pullen, DEA Special Agent in charge, joining us, as well as Stephen Tubbs. You know the name, you know the voice. He's now Public Information Officer over at Rocky Mountain DEA. Billy, we got some questions.
Yeah, I had someone call off the air. Ron, good friend of the show, who's, again, we're all praying for you after this medical recovery, Ron, right now. But he had some questions for you. I wanted to know, Johnathan Pullen, first, what is the effect after you arrest these TDA gang members? He's looking at how quickly are they replaced here on the streets of Denver?
Well, specific to the TDA guys, I don't think they're going to be replaced that quickly. I mean, a lot of these guys are immediately going into ICE custody. So it's not like, perhaps a Mexican cartel guy. They could send somebody across the border today. A little bit harder to get here from Venezuela the same way. So I don't think they're going to be replaced that quickly. They're going to remain in ICE custody until they can be deported. So I think taking these guys off the street is going to have a long-lasting impact.
Excellent. Second question is, what's the impact of the LA fires that's going to disrupt the drug trade there? Are we going to see spillover, or maybe some new entrepreneurs coming here to Colorado to make up the money they've lost? They're not there in Hollywood.
So I worked in LA for 13 years. That city is a beast. I mean, roughly 16 million people in the metro area. I don't think much is going to change there. I mean, I think, it is a hotbed for Sinaloa and Jalisco cartel to ship drugs into that city, and then it gets dispersed all across the country. I don't think the fires are going to impact that.
Johnathan Pullen, DEA Special Agent in charge. As we wrap up, what's your message to cartel operators in Colorado?
I think the message to drug traffickers in this state is that we're not going to tolerate drug trafficking anywhere in Colorado. Colorado is not a safe space for you. If you're selling drugs and killing our kids, this is not a safe space for you anymore. We're going to use every single tool in the toolbox of the federal government to get you either incarcerated or returned to your home country.
It's a new sheriff in town. I love it, man. You combine these guys with like George Brockler, and it's like the
he's still a clown, but we love him. I mean, that's not official from DEA, but I will say this is Mr. Pullen's first sit down in studio.
Fantastic
hour, and we're happy to do it with you, Bill and Jeff. And
we
thank
apologize
you
deeply for that. That's his fault, not ours.
Listen, he's been fine. You guys, again, as I told you last week, you may not be number one in the ratings. You're number one in my heart.
Yes, that's exactly it, my friend. That's perfect.
No, we were seeing it on these text messages, Johnathan. The listeners of 710 KNUS and the hosts here, Jeff and Bill, and the management here are just so grateful for what you're doing. It's been a long time coming to have this type of strength against the problems in this community. It's heartbreaking to see what's happening to friends, family members. We're cheering you on, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for the support. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Stefan,
thank you guys.
It's so great to have you here.
I like just being on this side and just let you do the whole deal. It's a little more professional looking in here than when I was, but I am just so happy for the support from KNUS to those of us now with DEA. And, God's got me where I need to be right now. And I know that our men and women are working so incredibly hard every single day. Just know that there's a renewed sense of focus and we're out there.
Love it. Stephen Tubbs, Johnathan Pullen, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to Jeff and Bill's show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history, and I believe that even more after talking to Johnathan Pullen. Oh, man. I love it. Team America, one of the text messages. Whoo, we're making crime illegal again, protecting the good people of this country. And when you talk, those guys are heroes, man. You just hear it. It's awesome. The good people of the DEA. That was amazing. Well, coming up here in just a second, we'll talk to Matt Lamb, associate editor with the College Fix, because Ibrahim Kendi's little program going away. This was the guy that kicked off a lot of the DEI, BLM, critical race theory, intersectionality. And his program in college is funded with a $10 million grant from Jack Dorsey. Didn't deliver all that much, which is going to be interesting. So fun conversation with Matt Lamb coming up here in just a second, as well as Caufield, executive director of the Common Sense Institute, on how a lot of these policies coming from the Capitol are driving up your energy costs here, and it's just going to get worse in the state of Colorado. So a lot to cover, and plus some updates on some of these tariffs coming. You're not going to want to miss it. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 51 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 69 today. Wow, beautiful day. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, DJT says tariffs on Mexico will be put on hold for 1 month. The news caused the stock market to rebound slightly. Trump's decision comes after he spoke with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum this morning. She said that Mexico will send 10,000 National Guard members to the U.S. border to prevent drug trafficking into the U.S. Trump said the U.S. will negotiate with Mexico to attempt to get a deal done between the two countries. DJT is issuing tariffs on goods from Canada and China. Oil industry pro from North Dakota on Layman Politics on X.
We actually purchase 97% of the oil that you guys export. And that 97% of oil exports from Canada that we purchase in the United States, that accounts for 81% of your guys' entire oil production. Now, for some reason, you got it in your head that we desperately need to purchase this oil from you. Our oil and energy sector is going to die without Canadian exports. No, it's not. There's a very specific reason we purchase so much. It's because you guys sell that oil to us at a discount. Why would Canada sell so much oil at a discount? Well, simply put, it's because about 75% of your guys' total oil production is sour, heavy crude. Oh!
And they can't refine it, but we can. The president will sit down for an interview with Fox News before the Super Bowl on Sunday. The president and Brett Baer will talk about what Trump has done since his inauguration and his plans for the first 100 days of his presidency. I don't know if they have enough time to talk about that. They may have to make it an hour-long interview. Johnathan Pullen and Stephen Tubbs from the DEA on with Jeff and Billy last hour in studio. Stephen knew how to get here. They not only made that huge makeshift nightclub TDA bust last week, they stopped more gangs in recent days, a dozen different operations.
You know, on Monday, we seized 130,000 fentanyl pills from a Sinaloa cartel group. So you can't put a number on how important that is to the city of Denver. We really have woken up this week safer than we were last week.
It's true, right, Jeff. I mean, right, you know, the 130,000 pills that were seized a week ago today, you know, DEA labs say now 50% of those pills contained a potential fatal dose. So you're talking potentially 65,000 lives.
Right.
And that's not hyperbole. It's fact.
Great work, guys. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers ready to begin salvage efforts following last week's deadly midair collision near Reagan National. Their initial focus will be to remove the remnants of the American Airlines jet, which is expected to take around 3 days. Elon Musk says the Trump administration is working to shut down the agency responsible for foreign aid. Musk, who is leading the White House effort to cut down the size of the federal government, talked about the plan on X. Speaking of U.S. aid, Mike Benz.
This is a palace coup, folks. This is rogue organs of the federal government preventing the American people from electing a president. This push to prosecute Trump by Alvin Bragg, Soros was a minor co-funder. He gave them $10,000. That's it. And the $14 million he gave to the parent company, the fiscal sponsor of FJP, well, that ain't compared to $28 million, the $27 million that USAID gave him. But it all works together because, like I said, Soros is State Department. Soros is USAID. Soros is attached at the hip. Soros Inc. is a donor and drafter in the State Department network, a tag along, like many of these other oligarchs are. Wow, incredible. We just broke huge news here.
Yes, you did. Disgusting. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will meet with President Trump this week. He's expected to travel to the White House on Tuesday, where he'll be the first foreign leader to meet with Trump in his second term. Panama's president says his country will end a key deal with China after meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And Democrats, well, come on. They've got their stuff together and just bossy, very bossy.
Hello, Democrats. Hey, I am speaking. And I would love your attention. There is a Black woman at this podium, and I deserve your attention like the 11 people who went before me. Yes, I am speaking.
Good evening, Democrats. Look up here. 3 strong Black women standing before you. 3 Black women who, rather than just grabbing a chair, ran for chair.
Te quiero mucho, papá. Gracias por todo. My name is Artie Blanco, Freddie Blanco's daughter. Vote for me for vice chair.
Look at this room, y'all. Truly take it in. This is the Democratic Party. We are our strongest when we stand together.
And they chose a man. The Mavericks, Luka Doncic, to the Lakers in a huge trade for Anthony Davis over the weekend. I'm sure all of it was engineered by the NBA. Pelicans at the Nuggets tonight, 7 o'clock tip. Avalanche over the Flyers Sunday. It's 48 in Brighton, 49 in Wheat Ridge, and 51 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
As the chair has said, you may vote for 2 males, 2 females, 2 of any gender, okay? Nope, you can't do that because we've got to balance. You could vote for 1 of any gender, okay? Or no, non-binary gender, excuse me. It is late.
Let's go with the 2 males. Do you believe that stuff? That was
just keep talking.
Classic.
Just keep talking.
Yeah, just keep on rambling.
You won't be winning any election soon.
Oh, you got that right. Blake Olson, News Stock 710 KNUS.
Very mild Pacific air will dominate here along the Front Range pretty much all week, although temperatures will be up one day, down the next. Overall, they're going to be very, very mild for February as Arctic air will be locked up in the meantime to our north through Friday, but it will be trending colder by the weekend. 65 to 70 today, 50s to near 60 tomorrow, low to mid-60s Wednesday, cooling to the 50s Thursday, nights 20s and 30s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Saw this article over the weekend in the College Fix. Ibrahim Kendi. This is the guy who wrote the book that kind of kicked off a lot of the anti-racism stuff, Stamped from the Beginning. And he got a lot of money during the BLM riots to put together his anti-racism center and shutting it down, functionally inactive. And he's now moving it to Howard University. And I take this a little personally as somebody who ran a university think tank for 8 years. and generally know how they operate. And we were fully transparent. If anybody wants to see anything, I can tell you exactly where every dollar went and what we spent it on. And I would sit down, because what was important to me was, especially talking to donors, that they saw it as an investment. And they weren't just giving money away. They saw it as an investment in driving Christian conservative values in the public square. So seeing a functionally inactive and poorly run anti-racist think tank, I had some questions on this. And joining us to provide some insights, Matt Lamb, associate editor at the College Fix, who's dove into this issue. Good morning, Matt. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So give us a rundown. What happened to this great anti-racist research center that he had at Boston University?
So Ibram Kendi has raised apparently around $50 million for this center, but the fundraising started drying up. It started off really strong. He was starting in 2020, so there was the George Floyd incident. Then there was the Black Lives Matter protest. There was all this focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he did quite well during that time. He started making around $35,000 per speech, 60-minute speeches. I get the sense it was mostly the same speech over and over. At one time, the College Fix calculated, this is in 2021, that he had made around $300,000 in the past several years, so presumably more. But Ibram Kendi has a problem in that he doesn't really fulfill many of his promises. So he would take this money for a racial data lab and with promises to do an anti-racist tech initiative, to file amicus briefs, write legislation. And some of that happened, but it was relatively small for the amount of money. Jeff, you worked in public policy, for a while. You're a political guy. It doesn't take that much money to hire an attorney to write an amicus brief.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Frankly, with all of these left-wing legal groups out there, most of them would probably do it for free if Ibram Kendi asked them.
We did a research document that was groundbreaking, and we ended up briefing the White House on it. We sent it to the United Nations. We had conversations there, and it was a research document that looked at the tax revenue collected from marijuana versus the social expenditures dealing with the effects of marijuana commercialization in Colorado. So Colorado legalizes marijuana, and one of the arguments was, well, now we're going to get tax revenue. So we said, okay, for every $1 of tax revenue that comes in, how much are we having to spend to deal with the effects of it? And we found that it was a total loser. For every $1, we were spending like $4.50, I think, dealing with the effects of it. And that, I remember having conversations with the White House, drug initiative there, lots of organizations. That cost us $30,000, and one donor paid for it. So we had a major public policy brief that went out there, used researchers from the University of Ohio. It was quite a powerful research program, or graduates of the University of Ohio. But it was impactful. One donor, $30,000, $50 million. Do we have any idea where that money went?
We really don't. And so I should say that Boston University has cleared Ibram Kendi on any accusations, I believe, of mismanagement or fraud. And now, so I'll accept that, except if you take in $50 million, perhaps you didn't do, and so he didn't do anything illegal. Okay, so I'll say that, so none of us get sued. If you take $50 million and you produce very little, I do think it's fair to say you mismanaged the funds. And I want to give an example. So there was all these issues that came out, people who worked there, the staff went from 40 to 19, and it was 2023, and Ibram Kendi said he was going to transition to more of a fellowship model, research associate. But I want to highlight this story. So the College Fix reached out last year to different research affiliates that were listed on his website, and basically just asked, what do you do? What does this entail? What's some of the research you've produced? And we published the article, didn't get any responses. And then someone emailed us, and we agreed to keep their name anonymous. And they said, I applied last year, and I didn't even know I was accepted until you emailed me these questions asking what it entailed. So even the people listed apparently didn't have any real responsibilities. And that was the reimagined, the reshaped Center for Anti-Racist Research. So when Boston University says, well, we're going to shut the university down. We're going to shut the center down, excuse me, on June 30th, because that's when Kendi is leaving. It's pretty much been shut down for 40% of its existence. I mean, 2 of the past 5 years it's been around. So they might as well just shut it down now because it's not doing anything.
Talking with Matt Lamb, the associate editor at the College Fix, who has a great article out about Ibram Kendi shutting down essentially an inactive anti-racist center at Boston University, now sending it to Howard University. Help us understand what Ibram Kendi is going to open at Howard University.
So according to Howard University, he's going to open this Institute for Advanced Study. And according to the university, this is going to be, quote, built on the highest standards of intellectual inquiry, end quote. He's going to focus on the same topics he promised everyone he was going to do at Boston University. So according to the university, he's going to focus on climate change, racism, technology, disparities, the global African diaspora. And I also want to make a point too that had he simply just blown a bunch of money, we could all laugh at Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, who gave 10 million of this $50 million. And, oh, well, he's got plenty of money. We all make mistakes. But I think what's worth noting is that Ibram Kendi's promotion of this idea of anti-racism is really quite dangerous and has really infected a lot of academia, a lot of studies, a lot of our tax dollars. I know there's a big kerfuffle because President Trump briefly was going to freeze some federal grants to universities. But a lot of this money goes to sort of niche political studies in a very vague sense. And so apparently he's going to continue this same sort of work at Howard University, which is quite unfortunate in my opinion.
Talking to Matt Lamb, associate editor of the College Fix, I want to maybe bring in the film, the racism film that Matt Walsh did, where he kind of exposed how there's been a grift around the idea of confronting racism. And I use the word grift because I think the American people generally want to rid the country of racism. Like I think that's a value that the American people hold when they see racism. They want to confront it. If there's systemic racism within an institution, or we're picking and choosing somebody based upon their skin color, if we're demeaning people based upon their skin color, they want that confronted. What you saw with kind of anti-racism, maybe this program that Ibram Kendi had put together, I'm not familiar with everything he did, but you see it exposed in Matt Walsh's film, is that there was a willingness to, in the name of confronting racism, make a whole lot of money. And that seemed to be the primary motivation, not necessarily addressing racism, but kind of exaggerating where racism may be, and becoming experts in DEI at the end of the day, not to necessarily confront racism, but to make a lot of money. Is this kind of part of that entire grift?
Well, I would say with any political movement, there's going to be people who make a lot of money off it. And so even if I said, well, that's a small amount of people, and so I'll agree. I mean, Matt Walsh's movie was great, and he exposed it. Look at the College Fix website. Look at other conservative websites that cover DEI spending. Plenty of examples to back up what you're saying. I would also say that the larger problem is that he's wrong about he's wrong in his view of racial issues. So in other words, if he had the right idea and he was making a lot of money off it, could perhaps be excused. Well, if you have a good idea, maybe you should make money off it. Maybe we should pay you to tell people about it. So what Ibram Kendi believes, and I'm just going to quote from his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. A racist policy is any measure that produces or sustains racial inequality between racial groups. At the end of the quote. The problem is that, one, it uses that very strong term racist, right? And so we're all against racism and people being racist. But it takes that term that traditionally has had an intent factor to it, that you went out and you yelled a racial slur at someone to make them feel bad, to exclude them, and there is a clear intent. He could say, when there are disparities, we should look into those, and that would be fine. There are. I mean, some racial groups might not do as well on health outcomes, for example. But I think to automatically say that's racism, that's racist, even if that's not what they mean, they're implying a certain intent, and I think it automatically works against their goals, because then people are kind of put into sort of a defensive position, where if you said Hispanics, generally perform worse with heart problems or cancer care, how can we all work together, public, private, whatever that approach is, whatever mixture, to ensure every American has the opportunity to live a healthy life, a long, healthy, fulfilling life? You would win more adherence, but his approach, I think, leads to a lot of combativeness and puts people in a very defensive position, and ultimately undermines a positive goal of helping every American succeed, no matter their race or sex.
Talking to Matt Lamb, associate editor of the College Fix. He's got a new piece out about Ibrahim Kendi shutting down his functionally inactive anti-racist center at Boston University, now moving it to Howard. I will tell you this, somebody who worked at a university, if the think tank is producing a lot of great content, is fundraising very well, and is a great addition to the life of the college and the university will work very hard to keep it. If it is not, they will let it go. I'm just going to put it out there. Here's the statement from Boston University to Fox News Digital. Dr. Kendi has decided to join another institution, and the Center for Anti-Racist Research will close when its charter expires on June 30th, 2025. Current center staff will be employed by BU through June 30th, 2025, and will receive resources and support to help ease their transition to pursue new job opportunities. The statement concluded, "We thank Dr. Kendi and the center staff and affiliated faculty for their contributions." Yeah, I don't think Boston University is all that sad to see them go, but I could be wrong. We'll have to see. Matt Lamb, associate editor of the College Fix, thanks so much for taking time to join us about the work and tell us about the work of Ibrahim Kendi and his anti-racist center. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll continue to cover that, plus some breaking news coming up on these tariffs. I want to talk to you first about my friends over at Advanced Hair Restoration. How about a simple New Year's resolution, one that even I could achieve? Reverse the clock on hair loss with Advanced Hair's simple one-day FUE treatment. You'll feel more confident and more youthful when you witness your own natural hair growing into those places that have been balding or thinning for years. From Advanced Hair's breakthrough technology to their highly experienced team, there's no one I trust more in hair restoration. Their simple FUE treatment begins to regrow your own natural hair the very next day, and your new hair is backed by the Advanced Hair Guarantee. Simply put, Advanced Hair's exceptional standard of care makes your comfort and your results their top priority. Celebrate this new year with a fuller head of hair and get a free consultation, $250 off, and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. Discover what meeting your resolutions could look like with the before and after pictures at advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. All right, coming up next, Kelly Caufield, the executive director of the Common Sense Institute, is going to join us because they have a new study. And unfortunately, the cost of electricity, heating your home, all that stuff is just going to get more and more expensive thanks to those down at the Colorado State Capitol. Not going to want to miss it. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. What's the future of electricity costs in America? Sorry, Colorado. The future of electricity costs in Colorado. You're not going to like it. I'm just going to give you the heads up. Here comes a gut punch. But first, my friend, Dan Caplis. I love Dan. Dan is pro-life, pro-family, pro-America, pro-faith. Who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. This guy is solid, and he is with us on the issues. And when you show up in court, you want somebody you can trust. But more than just being a great guy in an injury case battle, Dan is a real winner. Listen to this. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. It gets better. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. In fact, Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's 303-770-5551, dancaplis.com. All right, joining us now is Kelly Caufield. She's the executive director of the Common Sense Institute. Listen to this. The future of electricity costs in Colorado as a result of having to comply with these new Colorado laws. All right, it's going to cost each household $9,280 between now and 2040. Commercial businesses, $60,200 per commercial business. And for industrial businesses, $1.1 million. Thank you so much, you people at the state capitol. All right, to give us some insights and maybe tell us how we can fix it, Kelly Caufield, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning.
Can you hear me okay, Jeff? Thank you.
We got you loud and clear. You sound great. So, Kelly, please tell me this isn't true.
You know, Jeff, I think we can all say we all want a cleaner, safer Colorado. I'm a mom with 2 little boys. I want to make sure that I'm bringing a family into a clean environment. But until now, we didn't know how much we were all going to have to pay to achieve the emission reduction targets that the state has set out for us to reach by 2040 and by 2050. So with this analysis, we finally know we're all going to be asked to pay a lot more. And it's coming at a time where we're already the 14th highest cost of living state in the country. Inflation has created significant challenges in Colorado. And now we're all going to be asked to pay more for our electricity bills to reach the target set out by 2040.
Can you tell us?
$9,200 is a lot of money.
It is. Can you explain what some of these targets are and why exactly it's going to be so expensive?
Sure. So what Common Sense did in order to get the household costs calculated is we really built off this from a state report. You know, the state issued a report, the Colorado Energy Office last year worked on a report. It's a long name, but it was basically called the Pathways Report. And they wanted to model out what would be the cost to, on the equipment side, what would be the utility cost for Colorado to have, to meet its greenhouse gas emission reduction targets by 2040. How much would it cost them to produce the grid that would, allow the state to generate the amount of electric power it needed to generate and meet these, greenhouse gas goals by 2040? And this report said, hey, it's going to be $100 billion for, the utility side to build the equipment needed to, again, reach that electric power generation that the state would need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But we wanted to know how much it would cost to us. So that's kind of the history of why we are all about to have to pay a lot more.
Talking to Kelly Caufield, she's the executive director of the Common Sense Institute. So you released this about a week ago. Have you heard anything from our state officials that go, oh gosh, that's not good, or you got parts of the report wrong, or goodness, we need to change things? Have you got any feedback from lawmakers?
We're getting really good feedback from policymakers because, Jeff, as you know, both Democrats and Republicans, their number one issue this year is bringing down the cost of living. And that is a national issue too, quite obviously. This is something that everyone is talking about in every single state. And we have to talk about it here in Colorado. We're the 14th highest state in terms of cost of living. We are 50th in terms of housing affordability. That's according to CSI's housing index that we put out each year to show the lack of available affordable housing supply. So the legislature is very appreciative of this, and we are working to schedule briefings with both sides of the aisle so they can better understand the impacts. And then in terms of the governor's office, we are still waiting to hear a little bit more about their feedback to the report. I believe I just saw on, the media outlets that they had asked for quotes, and I'm not sure if I've really heard their feedback quite yet, but I think they're intrigued by the report. We're really hopeful that they're looking it through. As I said, Jeff, this is not just numbers we're making up. We base this off of the state's own report that they commissioned to understand what the cost was, again, on the equipment side in order to meet these greenhouse gas reduction targets.
Right. And when we would release reports at the think tank I ran, and we would get people that would provide feedback, go, that's wrong. I go, okay, well, what's the right number? And surprisingly, I never got a right or any number at all from folks. So talking to Kelly Caufield, executive director of the Common Sense Institute, they put out this great report, The Future of Electricity Costs in Colorado. You point out in the report that the state's report estimates that wind and solar will provide over 70% of Colorado's electricity. Come on, 70%. There's no. Do they really believe that we're going to get 70% of our electricity from wind and solar?
That's what they are relying on in order to meet pretty significant, power generation requirements that, the growing state of Colorado will require. 70% of the electric power sector will have to come from renewables, wind and solar. And they're quite expensive, Jeff. This is not an overly cost-effective way to do it. And I wouldn't have said that, but I'm just looking at the data. I'm seeing this big spike in what we are all going to have to pay in terms of our electricity prices. And it's hard to not blame anything else except that it's all based on 70% of the future electric grid needing to come from wind and solar. Our reliance on coal, on natural gas, let's not even talk about nuclear, is much smaller. And we are relying on expensive equipment and capacity that's going to have to be built out.
Kelly Caufield, Executive Director of the Common Sense Institute, joining Jeff and Bill live. Of those costs, when you're talking about reaching the goals that the state is aspiring to, are the majority of the costs from the generation of the power source, whether it be wind, solar, or is it the initial investment of setting up the system in order to provide that? Where is the major cost, just from what you've seen?
It's a great question. My understanding is, Xcel and other utilities, they're already building, but they're going to need to build even more equipment and infrastructure in order to meet these, electric goals by 2040. So I don't know exactly how much has already been built, but, the report that they commissioned themselves is just showing a significant need for more capacity. The state's own report indicated that electric power generation capacity will need to grow from 3.4 kilowatts per Coloradan to 7 kilowatts by 2040. That's a huge increase, and those larger levels of capacity are going to be needed in order to replace these retired coal and natural gas power generations and add additional generation to account for the lower capacity factors of renewables. They're not working as efficiently. So the amount of equipment that will need to be built out is going to be quite significant to the state.
Yeah, I would agree that the initial investment is going to be really almost cost prohibitive at times. And part of it also, we do have more than 300 days of sunshine here. So solar makes a heck of a lot more sense than the wind. Wind is much more transitory, not as necessarily reliable, but it is the initial investment and then also the upkeep, because we have things like hailstorms, and that can cause havoc on solar panels. We can create heating elements that melt the snow, that basically melt, or back them with black, that basically melt the snow off the top of them, that make them more efficient in heavier snow conditions. But yeah, it could work. But again, it's that initial outlay. The question I've got for you, Kelly Caufield, Executive Director of the Common Sense Institute, are we convinced, all of us three talking here and our listeners, that Xcel Energy is actually trying to make energy affordable for Coloradans? Because I've never seen a rate increase get pushed back on. I've never seen anyone blink on that. And they always seem to tell us, hey, it costs more. An example I go to is when the power grid in Texas failed, we helped supplement some of that. Then Xcel came back to Coloradans and said, yes, we helped out Texas, but because of that, it cost us more. So now you have to refill our pockets. You need to make up the difference of the stuff that we sent to
it's like the definition of an
Texas.
oligarchy.
Yeah. Are we ever convinced that Xcel is actually trying to make sure that Coloradans have affordable energy? Because I'm not convinced.
I would encourage, everyone to talk to their utility stakeholders, invite them invite them onto your programs to better understand. Because I don't think, I would really show them the report and ask them for their feedback, Jeff and Bill, because this is based off of, like I said, our analysis is based off of the state's report, but our numbers are also right in line with the PUC. And, Xcel is working constantly, has to work with the PUC, is, setting rates and, collaboration with the PUC. And the state's own filings, based on Xcel's numbers, could arguably show even higher rates than what we are reporting. But again, this is based on publicly available data. We looked at the state's report. It's right in line with where the PUC is forecasting. But for some reason, no one's been really talking about it, I don't think, in a way that, really shows that we've all been talking about this reduction target framework by 2040. and that, we have to move away from coal. We have to focus more on renewables to get there. But the data that's always been missing, at least from what I've heard, is how much do we all have to pay to get there? And here at Common Sense, we don't want to just throw around numbers. We want to bring it down to how does that impact me around the family table? What does that mean? So, as you might have seen in our report, if you're asking people to pay $9,200 at least per household, that's the cost of, the average Coloradan median salary. That's 3 to 4 paychecks. And that's also equivalent to the same cost as 4 to 6 months of rent. So that's a significant amount of money. We have some of the highest numbers of renters in Colorado. It is nearly 40% of Coloradans are renters. So again, we try to show what does $9,200 even mean? And the cost of 4 to 6 months of rent, that is a substantial amount of money for the average Colorado family. So bring Excel on. Ask them to respond to the report. I think that would be a good idea.
Should. That is a great idea. Kelly Caufield, Executive Director of Common Sense Institute. We have text messages here from more progressive wing of our listener audience who are going, oh, this is just, you guys are just a shrill for big oil, all that stuff. But you guys are using actual data that comes from the state. So this isn't an industry publication. This is done with the data that comes from from our own state, right, Kelly?
That's really what Common Sense prides herself about. We are nonpartisan. We are nonprofit. We are looking at this work as objectively as we could. And it's a real good thing, actually, right, that the state had data available that our own Colorado Energy Office developed with a firm called Ascend Analytics. They did this report last year. It was called Pathways to Deep Decarbonization in Colorado's Electric Sector by 2040. Anyone can find that. Anyone can Google it. It's good that the Energy Office commissioned it. But again, it's a little self-interested, right? It was a report that showed, I think, 7 or 8 different scenarios of how the state could reach our greenhouse gas emission targets, what set of utilities and equipment would be needed in order to reach those goals. But again, what about us? There was no modeling of how much these different scenarios would cost the average Colorado household. It has to be a part of the debate, and people deserve to know how much they're being asked to pay to reach these 100% emission reduction goals.
Kelly Caufield, Executive Director of Common Sense Institute, really some of the best research to drive public policy decisions in the entire state of Colorado. Go to commonsenseInstituteus.org/Colorado if you want to learn more about the great work that they're doing. They've got some great events coming up called Eggs in the Economy, where you can learn from experts on the economy and how policy is changing our economy. Fantastic organization, commonsenseInstituteus.org/Colorado. Kelly, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
So much, Jeff and Bill. Have a good day.
All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Statement out from Donald Trump. I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
It was a very friendly conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. We further agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariffs for a month period, during which we will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Commerce, and high-level representatives of Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations in those negotiations with the president of Mexico as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. Bill, you and I were talking off air. I guessed that these would last anywhere between 48 hours and a week, with Mexico not even implementing them. So, interesting.
I'm surprised he wasn't really that serious about them. It's fantastic.
That's what I think is going to be interesting next, is if, but then was the hurdle that high to begin with?
I don't know. And it's weird that he also refers to an agreement, because we'll talk about this another day, but he did sign an agreement during his last term when he redid the NAFTA thing. There was an agreement.
Oh, the debates will continue.
Yes, they will.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader. We are News Talk 710 KNUS.